Except for the Demon King, all other origin beasts were hard to hunt after the incident. Roar! The Demon King tilted its head back and howled into the spatial dimension. Lin Shi knew the Demon King was worried about him. After waking up, Lin Shi explained to the Demon King the reason for his coma, then asked how long he had been out. The Demon King pointed with its claws, indicating they hadn't eaten for 4 days. Realizing he had only been unconscious for a day and a night, Lin Shi withdrew his consciousness from the space. His stomach rumbled with hunger. He was so hungry he could eat a whole cow. This was a common condition after every rank advancement, as breaking through consumed a massive amount of energy. Standing in the living room, Lin Shi suddenly remembered that before he passed out, there was probably some leftover roasted meat in the kitchen. The moment he thought of the kitchen, an image of it instantly appeared in his mind. Everything in the kitchen, whether left out or stored in the cabinets, was clearly displayed in his head. Spiritual power scanning. Lin Shi was slightly startled. Just by thinking about it, the image appeared. It was an all-too-familiar ability, the spiritual power scanning he had after unlocking his gene lock in the past. But right now, he clearly hadn't unlocked his gene lock yet. This was an ability gained after his Tier 4 evolution. Realizing this, Lin Shi tried again. Sure enough, it was spiritual power scanning. Although the scanning range was smaller, he was still overjoyed. Being able to use spiritual power scanning without unlocking his gene lock meant he could use this ability at any time. Only after trying it did he realize how useful it was. Within the scanning range of his spiritual power, no danger could hide. Hunting would be much safer now. What's more, this was the scanning range of his spiritual power before unlocking his gene lock. If he unlocked it, according to the previous rules, it would be at least over 300 meters. No, wait. The range might be even larger. Lin Shi felt his spiritual power mutate once again. At this moment, he was eager to test his condition after unlocking his gene lock. Grumble. His protesting stomach reminded Lin Shi to eat his fill before testing anything. Lin Shi smiled bitterly. Better eat first and test later. Taking some cooked origin beast meat out of his space, Lin Shi sat at the dining table and ate piece by piece. He didn't stop until his hunger vanished. Wiping his mouth, he cleared the table. His mood had calmed down significantly. As a rule of thumb, it was best to check his physical changes after advancing to Tier 4 in his normal state first, then unlock his gene lock for comparison. Lin Shi stepped out of the safe house. His strength had nearly doubled compared to before. Previously, he could lift about 800 caddies with one arm. Now it was around 1,500 caddies. His current speed reached 50 meters per second. Ordinary people could hardly track his movements with the naked eye. His defense grew slower, as he usually couldn't make his muscles bulge out. He could catch ordinary bullets, but armor-piercing rounds would still injure him. His defense was still far inferior to a Tier 4 origin beast. His extreme healing ability meant small knife wounds could heal in minutes. After testing, Lin Shi estimated his current physical stats. Observing the results of his gene lock, Lin Shi's eyes flashed with hope. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. At this moment, halfway up the mountain outside the safe house, a Tier 3 monkey led over a dozen other monkeys, jumping and flashing in and out of sight as they rushed toward the peak. Perfect timing. Let's use you guys to test my current strength. Lin Shi mobilized the origin power in his body, releasing the energy. A second later, his Tier 4 gene lock opened. How fast is 100 meters per second? In a flash, Lin Shi disappeared from the safe house door and appeared right in front of a Tier 3 origin beast. The entire process happened in the blink of an eye. If someone recorded it with a security camera, they would only see a blurry shadow shooting out of the safe house. After all, the maximum frame rate of a standard security camera is only 20 times. Lin Shi charged into the pack of origin beasts. Except for the Tier 3 monkey, the other Tier 1 and Tier 2 beasts couldn't react at all. With a mere thought, a large halberd appeared in his hand, swinging fiercely at the pack. A second later, 3 origin beast skulls rolled onto the ground. Screech. Sensing the looming danger, the leading Tier 3 monkey looked at Lin Shi in terror and fled down the mountain. The other monkeys immediately scattered as well. But how could Lin Shi let go of these materials that delivered themselves to his door? He swapped the heavy halberd for Qi Yun's lighter sword, charging at the closest and slowest monkey. Ever since Lin Shi got this sword, he had only looked at it a few times before tossing it into his space. The material couldn't be identified with the naked eye, but it channeled origin power exceptionally well. Just by infusing origin power into it, this sword could cut through iron like mud. It was just too light. He didn't really like it. Every swing of his sword took a monkey's life. These monkeys fled frantically, but how could they outrun Lin Shi? In just over 10 seconds, more than a dozen monkeys had all become dead souls under his blade. Lin Shi stomped hard, chasing after the Tier 3 monkey that had already fled 700 or 800 meters down the mountain. After running a few steps and seeing the monkey fleeing, Lin Shi leaped, diving down the mountain. Thud! He jumped directly down the slope. This mountain wasn't high to begin with. A drop of over 10 meters was child's play for the current Lin Shi. No need to decelerate. Upon landing, Lin Shi only paused for a fraction of a second before stomping hard, creating a deep crater. Looking back, Lin Shi had already vanished from that spot. He had dashed out over a dozen meters. The speed of an origin beast was much faster than an evolver of the same tier. While chasing, Lin Shi realized this Tier 3 monkey was a speed-type origin beast. Even though this Tier 3 monkey was running at top speed out of sheer panic, it was still slower than Lin Shi. However, it would still take a minute or two to catch up. In just a few dozen seconds, Lin Shi was right on its tail. Crossing 2 kilometers to get closest to the town of Wulong Village, the distance between Lin Shi and the monkey rapidly closed. The monkey ran for its life, using all 4 limbs to their limits, constantly looking back as it fled. The closer he got, the clearer Lin Shi could see the panic in the monkey's eyes. Just 10 more seconds and he'd catch it. Suddenly, the monkey changed direction, running toward a house. It scrambled up to the 5th floor of a building, then with a crash, smashed through a window and rushed inside. Lin Shi didn't hesitate to follow, leaping over 10 meters into the air and twisting his body through the window. A woman's scream pierced Lin Shi's ears. Lin Shi took in the scene inside the room. So there were people here. The room was pitch black, over 10 meters above the ground. The monkey that had been fleeing had now stopped. Right now, it was tightly gripping a woman. The woman was terrified, panicking and struggling with all her might. But it was absolutely impossible to escape the grasp of a Tier 3 origin beast. Let me go? Help. There was also a man in the room. He was so frightened by the sudden appearance of the monkey that he slumped to the floor. Seeing the woman begging for help, the man didn't dare look back. He frantically backed away from the monkey, retreating until he hit the wall. He quickly opened a door and slammed it shut. Tears streamed down the woman's face as she stared in disbelief and despair at the man who abandoned her and fled. Screech. The monkey bared its fangs, lifting the woman up for Lin Shi to see. Its intent to threaten him was obvious. A Tier 3 monkey already possessed intelligence comparable to a human's. Seeing it couldn't escape, it planned to use a human life to threaten Lin Shi into letting it go. But Lin Shi only paused at the window for a moment, using his spiritual power to clearly observe the situation in the room before lunging at the monkey. The sword in his hand pierced straight into the monkey's head without hesitation. Seeing this, a vicious red glint flashed in the monkey's eyes. It squeezed the neck of the despairing, terrified woman, then violently hurled her body at Lin Shi. Lin Shi kicked the corpse away, then immediately kicked away the monkey that was trying to sneak attack him from behind. The monkey let out an ear-piercing shriek, raising its sharp claws to attack Lin Shi again. But unfortunately, risking its life was useless. In the face of absolute power, the monkey only managed to hold on for a few seconds before Lin Shi drove his sword into its head, killing it instantly. Lin Shi pulled out his sword, stored the monkey's corpse in his space, and glanced at the woman's dead body on the floor without a ripple of emotion in his heart. If he hadn't used his spiritual power to scan this apartment and discovered the skeleton of a child in another room, he might have considered saving this woman in passing. But upon seeing the teeth marks on the child's bones, Lin Shi completely lost that intention. At the beginning of the apocalypse, people were starving and suffering. Many died of hunger and cold. So what did this couple rely on to survive? The answer was all too clear. Lin Shi kicked open the door the man had slammed shut. It was empty inside, with only a window wide open. He had run away. His spiritual power scan showed the man had already fled over 50 meters outside. When disaster strikes, everyone fends for themselves. Even a second's delay feels like a loss. A spear appeared in Lin Shi's hand. Standing at the window, he aimed straight at the fleeing man. With a single throw, a bloody hole appeared in the back of the man's head, and his body slumped into the snow. Lin Shi nodded in satisfaction. Now the whole family was properly reunited. Immediately, he returned to the safe house. After testing it in actual combat, Lin Shi was almost certain that after unlocking his gene lock, his physical strength doubled compared to before. His one-arm strength was 3,000 caddies, his burst speed was 100 meters per second, and his jumping ability was off the charts. The scanning range of his spiritual power reached 600 to 700 meters, and his line of sight vision was about 1,400 meters. His body's toughness had also skyrocketed. It was safe to say ordinary bullets could hardly pierce his skin, and armor-piercing rounds would only cause flesh wounds. His current physical stats, calling him Superman wouldn't even be an exaggeration, except for the fact that he couldn't fly. Over the next few days, Lin Shi also discovered that his ability to manipulate objects in his space had made tremendous progress. Right now, Lin Shi was in his bedroom. In recent days, the origin beasts in Sha City had mostly been cleared out. The ones that weren't killed had fled back into the mountains. Sha City had returned to the tranquility it had before the beast tide. Lin Shi's origin beast army now consisted of the Tier 4 Demon King, the Tier 3 Giant Panda, the Tier 3 Clouded Leopard, and the Long-Armed Ape, which had also advanced to Tier 3 over the past few days. Additionally, among the Demon King's wolf pack, a Tier 2 White Wolf that had followed the Demon King early on had evolved to Tier 3. The Demon King gave this White Wolf a very fitting name, Little White. There were also 26 Tier 1 origin beasts that, thanks to Lin Shi not skimping on origin beast corpses to feed them, had advanced to Tier 2. Currently, half of his origin beast army was Tier 2 or above. Lin Shi was no longer in a rush to go up the mountain to hunt. Instead, he stayed in his room, practicing his spiritual power in his free time. At this moment, Lin Shi was sitting on his bed, eyes closed, his spiritual power scanning the living room. In the living room, the little Degenli cat was staring intently at a tablet on the coffee table. The little Degenli cat's rank was still Tier 2. Before fully understanding how the little Degenli cat's spiritual attack worked, Lin Shi didn't plan on forcefully raising its rank. Just like the giant panda, it was still a cub right now. It couldn't execute many commands perfectly. Even if he let them evolve, they wouldn't be able to unleash their maximum power. So Lin Shi wouldn't force their ranks up. As long as they could keep up with the main lineup, it was fine. On the tablet, a middle-aged female teacher in work clothes was giving a lecture on the history of Xia country. The 5,000-year history of Xia country. The little Degenli cat stared at the tablet, its round eyes full of concentration. Suddenly, the little Degenli cat vanished from the sofa. A second later, it reappeared. It appeared on the dining table. Meow. The sudden event made the little Degenli cat's fur stand on end. It looked around anxiously. Everything around it was normal. There was nothing there. Before the little Degenli cat could figure out where it was, it vanished from the dining table again. The next time it appeared, the little Degenli cat was back on the sofa where it had been watching the tablet. Looking at the familiar tablet and the familiar history teacher, the little Degenli cat meowed again, its round eyes showing clear bewilderment. Meow. It looked at the spot it hadn't moved from and fell into deep thought. In the bedroom, the corners of Lin Shi's mouth couldn't help but curl up, showing a suppressed smile. He opened his eyes, a gleam of joy flashing in them. Teasing the cat was also a way to relieve stress. The scene just now was Lin Shi's doing. Over the past 2 days, Lin Shi discovered that after reaching Tier 4, he had developed a new ability. As long as an object was within the sensing range of his spiritual power, he could pull it into his space at any time, and he could move objects from his space to any empty spot within his spiritual power scanning range. This meant that in certain battles, his origin beast army, along with some heavier objects in his space, could produce miraculous effects. But this ability had to be used before unlocking his gene lock. That meant it could only be used within his current 32-meter spiritual power range, a circle with a 32-meter diameter. If calculated in a straight line, the furthest range he could reach was 74 meters. Imagine, during a fight, if I suddenly summon the Demon King from my space right behind my opponent and deliver a fatal blow? Unless the opponent has extremely sharp senses or is entirely focused on me and the Demon King, it would be absolutely impossible for them to dodge. But to coordinate perfectly, I need to practice more with the Demon King. Linsher got out of bed to prepare lunch. Today's meal was braised tiger brain. With his spiritual power exceeding 300 points, the Tier 4 saber-toothed tiger no longer helped increase his spiritual power. Perhaps due to the saber-toothed tiger's spiritual power limit, the origin power was still absorbed normally. However, Linsher wasn't in a hurry to absorb his fill of origin power. He understood now. The thing restricting his Tier 5 gene lock wasn't origin power, but spiritual power. He had nearly 2,000 gene pills and several hundred origin beast corpses in his space. Just by using the treasure-gathering basin to absorb them, it would definitely be enough for his origin power to reach Tier 5. But to upgrade his gene lock, he still needed enough spiritual power. Linsher was held back by his spiritual power every single time. He couldn't break through. And as for spiritual power, he still hadn't found any other way to increase it quickly. Like last time, breaking the 100-point mark was just a special case. The conditions were extremely harsh and couldn't be replicated. Increasing by 8 points a day, Linsher found this speed too slow. If ordinary people knew what Linsher was thinking, they would definitely cry their eyes out. For an ordinary person to increase their spiritual power before Tier 4, the only way was through grueling physical training and tempering their willpower. This primitive method of increasing spiritual power could even lead to mental collapse due to extreme pain. Only upon reaching Tier 4 could one use the method of consuming spiritual power to increase it like Linsher did. But among ordinary people, how many could live to see Tier 4? After preparing origin beast meat for the other beasts, Linsher brought out a steaming pot of braised tiger brain. It wasn't that Linsher particularly liked this ingredient, but it was the brain of a Tier 4 origin beast after all. He couldn't waste it. With the chili, star anise, and bay leaves Linsher added, at least this tiger brain dish looked pretty appetizing. After lunch, Linsher went outside. The long-armed ape and the clouded leopard were clearing snow on the mountain peak. It had been snowing constantly these past few days, so they had to clear the snow every day. The mutated potatoes from before had already been replanted by Linsher. He just had to wait another 2 or 3 months to harvest a whole pile of mutated potatoes. Watching the long-armed ape and the clouded leopard work, Linsher didn't stay idle. He brought the Demon King out for actual combat training, conveniently practicing their new coordination ability. Not long after, while sparring with the Demon King, Linsher's expression suddenly changed. Someone was coming. At the official shelter, the room Lin Tianrui arranged for Qi Yun and the others was different from the rest. Qi Yun's residence was a private suite. At this moment, Qi Yun had recovered and was leaning against an old sofa. Qi Yi and Qi Qi stood in front of him. Qi Yi had previously lost an arm in the battle with the saber-toothed tiger. The wound had healed now, but the arm eaten by the tiger couldn't be reattached. Qi Qi had recovered from his illness, but he had a few new wounds on his body. As for Qi Wu, he wasn't here. Still no news of Linsher? Qi Yun looked indifferently at a corner of the living room, his gaze unfocused, not knowing if he was zoning out or deep in thought. Qi Yi reported, "We've scoured the entire shelter and found no one matching Linsher's portrait. We also checked the newcomers who joined recently. There are 3 people with disfigured faces whose appearances can't be identified, but their ages don't match either." Qi Yun frowned, showing his dissatisfaction with the results. "Then go look elsewhere. Who knows, you might have missed someone." Qi Qi glanced at Qi Yun's expression and said, "Most of the survivors in Sha City have been taken in by Lin Tianrui. The people outside now are mostly from other places. Maybe Linsher is no longer in Sha City. Or maybe Linsher is dead. In the apocalypse, many people die. Who knows, he might be buried under the thick snow. If that's the case, we'll never find him." Qi Yun sat up straight. His eyes were sharp. "I don't care how long you search. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. If you can't find him, keep searching until you die." "Yes." Qi Yi and Qi Qi answered in unison, not daring to utter another word. "How is the investigation on Li Erheo going?" Qi Yun remembered something. Qi Qi answered cautiously, Our inside source provided information that Li Erheo is currently at Tier 3, and his battle beast is also Tier 3. He's been subjected to mental attacks every day. He's in the shelter. The one on the city wall last time was probably him too. Your suspicion is very likely correct. Li Erheo is highly likely secretly nurtured by another family. Qi Yun frowned, a glint in his eyes as if he suddenly thought of something. What do you guys think? Could Li Erheo be Lin Shi? Lin Shi, Qi Yi and Qi Qi were both startled by Qi Yun's speculation. After thinking for a moment, Qi Yi answered frankly, "Young master, according to the information from Lin Shi's adoptive mother, Lin Shi has been a very ordinary person since childhood. He was only better at studying than others, nothing outstanding. As for Li Erheo, according to our inside source, he is decisive in killing, ruthless, and has rich combat experience, no different from someone who has lived on the edge of life and death for years. This person's life trajectory is completely different from Lin Shi's from childhood to adulthood." Qi Yi spoke rather tactfully, but the implication was that the two were completely different people. Qi Qi also nodded. "That's right, young master. My judgment of people is very accurate. Even though Li Erheo has never shown his face, the aura he gives off makes me feel he's at least 30 years old." Qi Yun rubbed his temples, knowing the two were telling the truth. For some reason, he still had a gut feeling that Li Erheo was Lin Shi. But looking at all aspects, it was highly unlikely that Li Erheo was Lin Shi. Qi Yun also felt his suspicion was baseless. He changed the subject, tapping his fingers lightly on the sofa armrest. "Find Li Erheo first. No matter who this person is, we must find him first. Isn't Lin Tianrui trying to curry favor with Li Erheo? Have you found out his location?" "No. Li Erheo is elusive and very secretive. Even our inside source doesn't know where he usually stays. He has a very strong sense of counter-surveillance. Last time Qi Wu tailed him, he also lost track of him. But, young master, I found out something interesting." After Qi Qi finished speaking, he looked smug, proud to have obtained such valuable information. But Qi Yun frowned, his face gloomy. Qi Yi quickly kicked Qi Qi lightly to remind him. Qi Qi suddenly realized he was being a bit too smug and hurriedly said, "Young master, I discovered a suspicious group of people appearing near the shelter yesterday. They aren't from our country and seem to be targeting the shelter." Outside the safe house, Lin Shi stood in front of a tightly bundled figure. "Boss, this is bad." Liao Peng pulled down his mask, revealing his face. While Lin Shi and the Demon King were training, his spiritual power had detected Liao Peng on the mountainside. So, he and the Demon King stopped and waited for Liao Peng to arrive. Lin Shi frowned, looking at Liao Peng's anxious face, and asked curiously, "What's so bad?" "Someone brought your picture to the shelter looking for you. They've been searching for days. The shelter was closed a few days ago, so I couldn't get out. Today the gates opened, and I hurried over here. I heard from my neighbors that those people are very strong. Boss, you have to be careful." Liao Peng panted, stammering a bit, but finally getting his words out clearly. Lin Shi understood. "So it was about this." "I know," he replied calmly. Liao Peng was startled. "Boss, you know." "Yeah, I went to the shelter before. Right before the beast tied." Hearing this, Liao Peng breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Shi asked, "Did you come all the way here just to tell me this?" Only Liao Peng and the fat Taoist priest who signed the land transfer contract with him knew his real name was Lin Shi. When he found out Qi Yun and his gang had his picture, Lin Shi worried Liao Peng might reveal his identity. But looking at it now, not only did he not reveal it, he even ran over to warn him. Lin Shi observed Liao Peng and noticed origin power fluctuations coming from him. "You're an evolver?" Lin Shi asked, slightly surprised. He didn't know what Liao Peng had encountered these past few days to become a Tier 1 evolver. Logically, Liao Peng should have been in the shelter these past few days. Hearing Lin Shi's words, Liao Peng smiled, adjusting his clothes that were a bit wrinkled from running, and said, "I really can't hide anything from you, boss." Liao Peng spoke mysteriously. "Boss, do you know whose child that baby I was raising was?" Hearing Liao Peng say this, Lin Shi knew he must have encountered something special. He replied, "I took the child to the shelter before, then found some soldiers to ask if anyone had lost a child. A lot of people came looking at the time, and quite a few had bad intentions. They couldn't even explain how my child got hurt. I thought I went to the wrong place. Who knew that night, a couple and a few soldiers came looking for me, saying it was their child. Only after confirming they were the baby's birth parents did I learn they were both researchers at the shelter. They said a nanny was originally watching the baby, but she lost him. They were on the verge of despair. To thank me, they gave me a few blue pills, called gene elixirs. They said taking them gives you a chance to become an evolved. I took 3, and sure enough, I became one. Liao Bang finished his story and pulled a cloth pouch from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a small, sealed bag filled with the familiar blue gene elixirs. I knew how valuable they were, yet Liao Bang just took them out so casually. This is reckless. You're just showing them to me like this? Aren't you afraid I'll rob you? Lin Shi asked, puzzled. Liao Bang smiled, his expression calm as he handed them straight to Lin Shi. If you want them, boss, just take them. Without you, I'd be dead anyway. What would I need gene elixirs for? If you're worried I'll reveal your secrets, I'm fine with that too. His pupils constricted, but he just said calmly, why would you think that? In truth, Lin Shi had felt a flicker of killing intent, but Liao Bang's actions made it hard for him to follow through. He was decisive and killed without hesitation, but he wasn't one to slaughter the innocent, especially those who were completely loyal to him. People like Liao Bang, like Qin Shuang. He often found himself unconsciously sparing them. Boss, I've thought it through very clearly. You've saved my life 5 times. Liao Bang seemed to be reminiscing, turning his head to look at the distant, snow-capped mountains. The first time, you brought me to Sha City. I'm not stupid. If it weren't for you, I'd still be in High City, working during the day and drinking at night. The weather turned cold so suddenly back then. In High City, I probably wouldn't have survived the first night. Lin Shi didn't know about Liao Bang's past, but the death rate in High City was indeed extremely high. Most people froze to death on that first night. When Liao Bang helped Lin Shi build the safe room, although Lin Shi had scammed him out of 500,000 for firewood, he had also given him a chance to survive. Liao Bang was a shrewd man. How could he not have realized that Lin Shi was using the money to control him back then? But he was still grateful to Lin Shi. He continued, the second time, you told me to prepare supplies. Without those things, I would have died in the early days of the apocalypse. The third time, you gave me a lot of medicine, helping me get through that deadly plague. The fourth time, you saved me from those thugs. If it weren't for you, boss, the baby and I would both be dead. How would I have ever gotten these gene elixirs? The fifth time, you let me stay in the shelter for a few days, helping me escape this beast tide. Liao Bang's eyes were a little red. He looked at Lin Shi sincerely. Boss, I was an orphan. I left the orphanage and wandered for decades. I've been through darkness and seen brief glimpses of light. Besides my unknown parents, you're the only one who has given me so much light. In this life, even if you told me to die, I'd do it willingly. I know you have many secrets, and that makes you worry. If you want to kill me, I won't hold it against you. My life was saved by you in the first place. Liao Bang had actually wanted to say this for a long time. Lin Shi lowered his eyes, as if in thought. You really want to die? After speaking, Lin Shi looked directly at Liao Bang. Liao Bang was calm, without a trace of fear. He just nodded. No regrets. With that, he closed his eyes, his expression serene, as if leaving himself to Lin Shi's mercy. But he waited for a long time, and nothing happened. There was none of the pain he had imagined. Liao Bang frowned and opened his eyes. Lin Shi was gone. Before him was only the giant, dog-headed Demon King. The Demon King tilted its head, looking at Liao Bang with a puzzled expression, as if it didn't understand why he was being so reckless. Liao Bang and the Demon King stared at each other for a while. Liao Bang assumed the Demon King was left by Lin Shi to kill him. The feeling of waiting for death was still pretty unsettling. He gave a bitter smile and said, Can you just bite my head off first? Make it quick. Thanks, big guy. But after waiting and waiting, he still felt nothing. Liao Bang opened his eyes again. The Demon King was bored, playing with the snow. Lin Shi had already returned to the safe room. Liao Bang was stunned, standing there at a loss. Soon, Lin Shi walked out of the safe room. Liao Bang was still standing in the snow. In just a short while, without a hat, his face was covered in frost. Lin Shi handed Liao Bang a small bag containing a metal fragment. Liao Bang took it subconsciously, looking at Lin Shi in confusion. You know people at the Scientific Research Institute, right? Take this back. Have them test what material it's made of. It would be best if they could figure out the technology to forge it. Lin Shi pointed to the small, fingernail-sized metal fragment in Liao Bang's hand. That metal fragment was the tip of the Qi Yun sword. Just now, it had taken Lin Shi quite a bit of effort to break off that tiny piece from the sword's tip. Although that sword could channel origin power and become incredibly sharp, it was too light and too small. It wasn't comfortable for Lin Shi to use. If they could figure out what metals and materials this sword was made of, maybe he could find the necessary materials to forge a brand new weapon that suited him perfectly. Liao Bang knew some researchers in the organization. With his intelligence, he could surely find a way to get this metal fragment to the research institute for analysis. Since Liao Bang had placed his life in his hands, Lin Shi decided to spare him. But complete trust was impossible. Besides himself, there was no one in this world who could guarantee they would never betray him. As for whether or not killing Liao Bang would expose his secrets, if Liao Bang wanted to talk, he would have done so long ago. He wouldn't have waited until now to deliver himself to his doorstep to be killed. Liao Bang took a deep breath, his eyes shining. He knew Lin Shi had decided not to kill him, but to trust him instead. Liao Bang looked at Lin Shi seriously and said, "Boss, I guarantee I'll complete the mission." Lin Shi nodded, then added, "If this fragment is discovered, it's fine. Just say you picked it up. Especially if your superiors ask, tell them you found it near the Dongjiao Wharf. If they want to reward you, just take it. But you must get the composition and forging method of this fragment." Liao Bang nodded seriously. Lin Shi then carefully instructed him on the details of what to do if he was discovered and how to answer questions about where he found the fragment. Currently, the organization had already established a factory specializing in crafting and forging cold weapons. If they really managed to research the composition of this sword hilt, they might have to rely on the organization's power to forge it. As for being discovered by people in the shelter, let them discover it. If this type of weapon could be mass-produced, the one who would lose out wouldn't be him, but the hidden clan that developed it. Thinking about how precious this kind of sword was to the hidden clan, it couldn't be easy to forge. This was evident from the fact that the weapon recovered from Qi Wu before was just an ordinary metal one. If Liao Bang was discovered in the process and the shelter obtained the forging technology for this weapon, not only would Liao Bang not be punished, he would be rewarded. And as for losing just this small fragment, it was nothing to Lin Shi. When he broke off the sword tip, he had already replicated an identical one. Liao Bang listened seriously to Lin Shi's instructions, nodding repeatedly. "Yes, I know what to do, boss. You can leave it to me." After sending Liao Bang off, Lin Shi sparred with the Demon King for a while longer before recalling it to his space. For some time after that, Lin Shi remained in the safe room, either practicing his mental force or sparring with the Demon King to improve their combat synergy. When he had free time, Lin Shi would also let the Demon King and the wolf pack go hunting in the mountains. Every time the Demon King went hunting, it not only fed the entire pack, but also brought back 2 or 3 origin beasts. It was already becoming a proper alpha wolf. Lin Shi also gained a clear understanding of the multi-eyed kitten's psychic attack ability. It was different from his own. Lin Shi called it a mental force impact. It could be used for single or group attacks. As long as the multi-eyed kitten felt threatened, it would attack proactively. At its current Tier 2 level, its psychic attack could affect a Tier 3 origin beast. At least for a second. Don't underestimate that 1 second. In a fight, it's sometimes a battle of split seconds. 1 second is enough for another origin beast to attack the one stunned by the psychic assault. However, aside from its psychic attack, the multi-eyed kitten's physical attack power and speed were quite average. Therefore, Lin Shi positioned it as a support, and a very important one at that. Just imagine, when Lin Shi is fighting an enemy, the multi-eyed kitten, from a relatively safe distance, launches a surprise attack on the opponent. Then, with the Demon King joining the assault, Lin Shi could already picture the scene. Aside from revealing the weakness of his space, as long as he used this move, no one or no origin beast of the same tier could survive. Even against a Tier 5, Lin Shi thought it wasn't impossible to win, because of the multi-eyed kitten's importance. Just a few days later, Lin Shi upgraded it to Tier 3 and gave it a name, Manhwa. Since it was a female, Manhwa was a very fast learner and could now understand Lin Shi's words quite well. But reaching the Demon King's level of understanding would take more than a short time. Lin Shi also gave the giant panda a name, Baojun. Baojun was becoming more and more majestic, and its body was growing larger and larger. It was currently the largest origin beast in Lin Shi's space. Even though it hadn't reached Tier 4, its body was a size larger than the Demon King's. As a national treasure, Lin Shi took good care of it every day, with treatment second only to the Demon King's. Baojun was very attached to the Demon King. Even its call sounded almost like a dog's bark. One bear and one dog, both with black and white fur. From a distance, you might even mistake them for a pair of bear-dog brothers. 2 weeks after Lin Shi sent Liao Bang back with the fragment, Liao Bang once again appeared in front of Lin Shi's safe room. Knock, knock, knock. Liao Bang knocked on the door. There was still no answer from inside. The biting cold wind howled. Liao Bang shivered from the cold, pulling the collar of his military coat tighter. He touched his pocket again. Winter had arrived earlier than expected. Just after the first Lunar New Year of the apocalypse ended, another month would bring the harsh post-New Year winter. The average daytime temperature in Sha City had now dropped to -60 degrees. At night, it could reach -80 degrees. The daylight hours were also shorter. It was still pitch black at 10 in the morning, and dusk fell at 3 in the afternoon. It was now 1 in the afternoon. Liao Bang had left the shelter early in the morning and arrived at the safe room's door. At this temperature, an ordinary person wouldn't last more than an hour outdoors before freezing to death. Fortunately, Liao Bang now had the constitution of an evolved, so he could still endure it. But Liao Bang had already been waiting at the door for over 20 minutes. If Lin Shi didn't show up soon, he would have to go back. The nighttime temperature was too low. Even he couldn't withstand being outdoors for long. Liao Bang. Just as Liao Bang was getting anxious, he heard Lin Shi's voice from behind him. Boss, I finally caught you. I thought you'd overslept. I knocked for so long and no one opened up. My hand is all red from knocking. Liao Bang turned around, looking at Lin Shi happily, half joking. He completely ignored the distant mountain peak, where the Demon King and its wolf pack, along with Baojun, a giant beast the size of a house, were. It wasn't that he wasn't scared, but that he couldn't afford to be. Lin Shi had planned to go out for some exercise today, so he had taken all the origin beasts up the mountain. Lin Shi quickly walked up to Liao Bang, brushing the snow off his shoulders. Been waiting long? What's up? Is it about the results from last time? Yes. Liao Bang saw that Lin Shi seemed a bit excited. Shivering, Liao Bang took out a piece of paper from his coat and handed it to Lin Shi. It wasn't because he was trembling, but because his hands were too cold. This is the composition of the metal fragment you gave me last time. And the forging technology is also written here. Liao Bang was about to say more, but seeing Lin Shi's serious expression, he swallowed his words. Lin Shi carefully read the contents of the paper. He recognized all the metals listed on it. More than half were the same as the materials he used to forge the heaven-cleaving axe. But the last item puzzled him. Origin material? What's this? Liao Bang had already prepared his explanation. I heard it's an extremely rare material, only obtainable from the hard parts of certain strange mutant beasts. This material, extracted from the bodies of beasts, can be used in forging weapons. It's called origin material. They say that just by adding this material during forging, the finished weapon can channel origin power, becoming an indestructible weapon. This type of weapon is called an origin weapon. Liao Bang lowered his head, saying guiltily, I'm sorry, boss. The matter you entrusted to me, to find someone to research that metal fragment, was discovered. The fragment was also taken away. Lin Shi frowned, but he wasn't too surprised. For a metal that could conduct origin power, even if Liao Bang had saved their children's lives, for the sake of humanity and the shelter, those researchers would still report it. He still had 2 Qiyun weapons in his space. Losing the fragment was no big deal. He had anticipated this. Lin Shi asked calmly. Who suspected you? Lin Tianrui. Yes, it was Leader Lin. He didn't make things difficult for me. He just asked about the origin of the fragment and a few personal matters, then let me go. He even rewarded me with quite a lot of things. Liao Bang reached into his coat again, this time pulling out a large bag of gene elixirs. Because the amount was too bulky and dangerous to carry, Liao Bang had used many small plastic bags to store them. Liao Bang pulled them out one by one. Soon, Lin Shi had 5 plastic bags in his hands. Lin Shi scanned them with his mental force. Each bag contained about 200 pills, totaling 1,000. This is the gene elixir reward from Leader Lin. There was also some food, but it was too heavy, so I didn't bring it. I'll bring it to you another day, Liao Bang said. Lin Tianrui gave you this many gene elixirs? Lin Shi ignored the food, focusing on the gene elixirs in his hand. An ordinary person couldn't use this many, unless their mental force reached its maximum limit. Otherwise, after an ordinary person took a few pills to unlock Tier 1, it would be difficult to level up further. So, the elixirs were mainly used for healing, but even then, you wouldn't need this many. If Liao Bang was just an ordinary Tier 1 evolved, Lin Tianrui could have easily used something else as a reward. Liao Bang nodded. Leader Lin is very easy to talk to. At first, I said I didn't need so many, but he insisted on giving them to me. He even told me to bring them to the person behind me. At this, Liao Bang looked at Lin Shi apologetically. Boss, I don't know when I was exposed. I never mentioned you in the shelter. Lin Shi gave a wry smile. As expected, Lin Tianrui had figured out that Liao Bang was his man. These gene elixirs were Lin Tianrui's attempt to win him over. Last time, the saber-toothed sword disappeared at the same time as him, and the Qi Yun sword also vanished along with it. It wasn't strange that Lin Tianrui could guess something. It's not your fault this time. You did well. You don't need to bring the food. Consider it your reward. Thank you, boss. Lin Shi then recounted the story of him using the fake name Lier Heo. So the famous hero Li in the shelter is actually you, boss. Liao Bang was astonished. Lin Shi awkwardly rubbed his nose and said, From now on, if anyone asks about my location, I'd rather die than say a word. Liao Bang said resolutely. Lin Shi nodded. Right, boss. Have you been to Dongjiao recently? Heard any news? What's going on? Since the end of the beast tide, except for Dongjiao, other areas in the city had become wilderness for the survivors. At any moment, a beast tide or stray beasts looking for food could appear, making the streets of Sha City nearly deserted. Even for a lone evolved, it was extremely dangerous. Liao Bang coming here to meet Lin Shi was also risking his life. Lin Shi had passed through Dongjiao a few times while hunting. He heard that the government had reinforced the Shanghai Hotel, which was destroyed in the last beast tide, to accommodate the increasing number of survivors arriving. At the same time, they were also building more shelters. Lin Shi knew about these things, but hadn't looked into them further. Liao Bang said with a serious expression, I heard that many people who came to Sha City recently have encountered foreigners. Some were even captured and eaten by them. This news is spreading more and more. Now, there are rumors in the shelter that the foreigners might attack our shelter. Lin Shi told Liao Bang to leave and not to come to his place during this period. If there was anything, Lin Shi would find him himself. Liao Bang coming too often could easily expose Lin Shi's location. Besides, it really wasn't safe outside anymore. As for the appearance of foreigners around Sha City, Lin Shi had heard some information about it in Lin Tianrui's office before. Looking at the distant town covered in white snow, Lin Shi recalled his conversation with Lin Tianrui in his office the day he went to the shelter. Do you know the situation in other countries besides the Xia nation now? That day, Lin Tianrui sat in his office and discussed this issue with Lin Shi. To be honest, Lin Shi had thought about it, but never deeply. The situation in the Xia nation was already terrible. Other countries were surely in dire straits as well. Most survivors didn't care about this issue. They couldn't even take care of themselves, let alone their families. Who had the energy to think about the situation in other countries? Most people thought that after the solar storm and the extreme cold, humans lost planes, ships, high-speed trains, and trucks, making long-distance travel impossible. Before the world restored its technology, just surviving was enough. That's what Lin Tianrui said, his expression serious, looking straight at Lin Shi. Have you ever thought that the oceans that once separated the continents are now frozen over? It's like connecting all the continents in the world. As long as you have a means of transportation or enough patience, a person can travel from one end of a continent to the other. Lin Shi thought for a moment and replied, in the current environment, traveling far is a death sentence. That's right. But if they don't travel far, they'll die too. Lin Tianrui continued. The collapse of this civilization has destroyed humanity's technology, military, population, and even its territorial maps. Most races in the world have almost returned to square one. To put it simply, they've returned to a primitive state of survival. When we use icebreakers to go out to sea for fishing, we send some soldiers to check on the situation in other countries. Guess what the situation in other countries is like now? Lin sure didn't guess. Lin Tianrui said directly, "Many countries have been occupied by mutated beasts. There are almost no signs of human life. Some people fled to other places, some died in the mouths of beasts. As for some small countries with small populations, the survivors have allied with neighboring small countries to form new types of tribes, and they are gradually migrating towards the equator. Currently, the only place where humans and wild beasts can survive is the region near the equator, because the temperature here is relatively stable. Although the light and heat from the sun are insufficient, the equatorial region still receives more than other places. Many areas in the north have already fallen into a state of polar night. Even origin beasts can't survive, let alone humans. If all the survivors in the world gradually migrate to the equator, although the current population isn't a big problem, when they gather together, conflicts and wars will inevitably occur. Thinking that the harsh environment will stop war? That's impossible. Even in ancient times, the struggle between people never stopped. Over a river, a shelter, or a woman, conflicts frequently occurred. Ahem. The Xia nation might be one of the few countries that currently possesses icebreakers. Lin Tianrui explained the importance and scarcity of icebreakers to Lin Shi. Before the apocalypse, not many countries in the world had icebreakers. The country with the most was the Hong nation, followed by the Jia nation. Even the country that called itself the beacon of the world only had 5 operational icebreakers. The Xia nation had 4. Some smaller countries didn't even have one. The number of operational icebreakers in other countries is not worth mentioning for now. Currently, the Xia nation has only one usable icebreaker in Xia City. This ship is of immense importance to both Xia City and the entire Xia nation. When Lin Tianrui mentioned this, Lin Shi suddenly remembered the 10 icebreakers in his space. Perhaps the number of operational icebreakers that other countries in the world have now is even less than the number in his space. Every time the icebreaker goes out to sea, it consumes a huge amount of diesel, but the benefits are also extremely great. Each trip can bring back tens to hundreds of tons of fish. It's no exaggeration to say that as long as there's no shortage of diesel, even if the population of Xia City doubles, there's no fear of starvation. It is truly a precious national asset. The icebreaker of Xia City has gone in and out many times, and has even docked on other continents to check the situation, soon attracting the attention of some countries. According to Lin Tianrui, neighboring countries have already secretly formed an alliance. Before the beast tide arrived, some representatives of these countries sent a message to Lin Tianrui, saying that humanity is facing a life-or-death crisis and should help each other. They wanted Lin Tianrui to lend them the icebreaker. Of course, Lin Tianrui refused. And those people didn't really just want to borrow it. Both sides understood that this was just a test. When the equator becomes packed with people from all over the world, war will begin. And Xia City, with its relatively abundant resources, has become a prime target. Lin Tianrui, as the nominal leader of the official shelter, thought much further ahead than Lin Shi, an ordinary person. At that time, Lin Shi only replied that he was just an individual, unable to influence relations between nations, nor could he bear the fate of the entire country. But Lin Tianrui said that Lin Shi was currently the highest-level combatant they knew of. Apart from the hidden clans, he could completely decide the outcome of future wars. There are no more fighter jets, no more tanks and cannons. Even specially made bullets can't penetrate the skin of high-level origin beasts. High-level evolved are the new strategic weapons on this land in the future. And if he cooperated with them, the government would prioritize resources to turn Lin Shi into a true hero and god of war. Lin Shi could only reply that he needed to go back and think about it. Only 20 days had passed, and unexpectedly, foreigners had already appeared near Xia City. Lin Shi returned to his safe apartment and opened the world map he had prepared earlier. Closest to Xia City were the Yao Nation, Mian Nation, Zhong Nation, and Pu Nation. These were the countries Lin Tianrui had mentioned before as the Wild Alliance. While Lin Shi was studying the world map, a group of uninvited guests appeared outside the official shelter. It was common for disputes to arise over a river, a shelter, or even a woman. What's more, the Xia nation now possessed rare icebreakers. The amount of supplies and food the Xia nation owned far surpassed that of other countries suffering from internal strife in the harsh cold. Lin Tianrui had explained to Lin Shi the scarcity and importance of icebreakers. Before the apocalypse, not many countries in the world owned icebreakers. The country with the most icebreakers was the Han nation, followed by the Jia nation. Even the country that called itself the beacon of the world only had 5 operational icebreakers. The Xia nation had 4. Some smaller countries didn't even have 1. The number of operational icebreakers in other countries is not worth discussing for now. Currently, the Xia nation has only 1 usable icebreaker in Sha City. The importance of this ship to Sha City and the entire Xia nation goes without saying. When Lin Tianrui mentioned this, Lin Shi suddenly remembered the 10 icebreakers in his space. Perhaps the number of operational icebreakers that other countries in the world have now is even less than the number in his space. Every time the icebreaker goes out to sea, it consumes a huge amount of diesel, but the benefits are also extremely great. Each trip can bring back tens to hundreds of tons of fish. The temperature in the ocean is relatively stable. Especially deep-sea fish, there are still many more compared to land creatures. It's no exaggeration to say that as long as there's no shortage of diesel, even if the population of Sha City doubles, there's no fear of starvation. This icebreaker is indeed a precious national asset. The icebreaker of Sha City has gone in and out many times, and has even docked on other continents to check the situation, soon attracting the attention of some countries. According to Lin Tianrui, neighboring countries have already secretly formed an alliance. Before the beast tide arrived, some representatives of these countries sent a message to Lin Tianrui, saying that humanity is facing a life-or-death crisis and should help each other. They wanted Lin Tianrui to lend them the icebreaker. Of course, Lin Tianrui refused. And those people didn't really just want to borrow it. Both sides understood that this was just a test. When the equator becomes packed with people from all over the world, war will begin. And Sha City, with its relatively abundant resources, has become a prime target. Lin Tianrui, as the nominal leader of the official shelter, thought much further ahead than Lin Shi, an ordinary person. At that time, Lin Shi only replied that he was just an individual, unable to influence relations between nations, nor could he bear the fate of the entire country. But Lin Tianrui said that Lin Shi was currently the highest-level combatant they knew of. Apart from the hidden clans, he could completely decide the outcome of future wars. There are no more fighter jets, no more tanks and cannons. Even specially made bullets can't penetrate the skin of high-level origin beasts. High-level evolved are the new strategic weapons on this land in the future. And if he cooperated with them, the government would prioritize resources to turn Lin Shi into a true hero and god of war. Lin Shi could only reply that he needed to go back and think about it. Only 20 days had passed, and unexpectedly, foreigners had already appeared near Sha City. Lin Shi returned to his safe apartment and opened the world map he had prepared earlier. Closest to Sha City were the Yao Nation, Mian Nation, Zhong Nation, and Pu Nation. These were the countries Lin Tianrui had mentioned before as the Wild Alliance. While Lin Shi was studying the world map, a group of uninvited guests appeared outside the official shelter. After the beast tide passed, the main gate of the shelter opened again, but only 2 doors were operational. One door was only for receiving supplies, with no entry or exit. The other door was for entry only. No exit. Previously, the supply distribution gate was still open. Now, most survivors in Sha City live inside the shelter. Receiving supplies requires exchanging contribution points. Opening so many doors, if they were suddenly attacked by origin beasts, it would be very difficult to control. Around 1 in the afternoon, a group of strangely dressed, aggressive survivors entered the main gate of the shelter. The leader had dark skin, a long scar from his cheekbone to his face, and fierce, inverted triangular eyes. The others also had ferocious faces, exuding a murderous aura. They were clearly not a group to be trifled with. They walked straight to the main gate of the shelter until they were stopped by the guards. "Show your residence cards." A soldier held out his hand in front of them. All survivors had to use residence cards to enter the shelter. That was the rule. The man with the triangular eyes was stopped, a fierce light flashing in his eyes. He grunted a few times. Before anyone saw him move, there was a flash of a blade, and the guard's head fell to the ground. It happened too fast. Another soldier was stunned for a second, then immediately reached for the gun on his hip while shouting. Before he could finish his words, his head also fell to the ground, next to the first guard's. Only then was the dagger in the triangular-eyed man's hand revealed. He had drawn the blade so fast that people only saw a blur. Enemy attack. The guards further away immediately raised the alarm, drawing their guns and firing at the group. But a person rushed out from behind the triangular-eyed man. A black shadow flashed through the dense rain of bullets. All the bullets that had just been fired were deflected by him. The soldiers retreated while shouting, "It's a mutant!" Informed the commander. The shelter gate was now littered with dozens of bloody soldier corpses. At this moment, the guards surrounding the main gate were all red-eyed, panting, on the verge of exploding. Lin Tianrui received the report from the gate and immediately ordered the soldiers to only surround them, not to attack. First, they had to control the situation and avoid further casualties. Seeing that the soldiers were not attacking, the triangular-eyed man's group also stopped. But what happened next made all the soldiers' eyes bulge, unable to contain their rage to kill them. The triangular-eyed man first opened his mouth and mumbled a few words, pointing at the dismembered soldier corpses on the ground. Everyone knew he wasn't saying anything good. A person from behind the triangular-eyed man stepped out and hoisted a soldier's corpse onto his shoulder. The others also each carried a soldier's corpse. The triangular-eyed man himself carried a freshly killed soldier's corpse, stripped off its clothes, and then began to gnaw on an arm. He mumbled as he gnawed. The others also lifted the soldier corpses and began to eat. Seeing this scene, anyone with a bit of backbone couldn't help but be enraged, let alone the fact that the ones being eaten were their comrades who had gone through thick and thin together. A soldier, defying the order, wanted to rush out and kill them. The result was a dozen more fresh soldier corpses on the ground. Fortunately, the others didn't eat. Only the triangular-eyed man continued to gnaw on the arm of that corpse. When Lin Tianrui and the others arrived at the gate, they saw the guards trembling all over, but still trying to restrain themselves. Make way. Witnessing the scene before them, even the usually gentle Lin Tianrui's eyes turned red with anger. On the soldier's arm in the triangular-eyed man's mouth, the flesh had been stripped from the bone, revealing the cold, white bone. "You animals! Commander, I want to kill them." An officer angrily pointed his pistol, about to rush forward, but was stopped by Wang Chao. At this moment, the triangular-eyed man had stopped eating, using his cold, snake-like eyes to look at the officer who had just tried to rush out. "Wang Chao, if you stop me again, believe it or not, I'll beat you to death." The officer, held tightly by Wang Chao, struggled frantically, so angry he was about to lose his mind. Wang Chao shouted, "Enough! Can't you see they're waiting for you to make a move? The commander is here. It's not your turn to show off." Although Wang Chao was very angry and resentful, he knew this matter wasn't so simple. Just over 100 people dared to swagger into their shelter, provoking them like this. Thinking about what Lin Tianrui had said recently, Wang Chao's anger subsided somewhat, replaced by worry. Lin Tianrui took a deep breath, veins popping on his forehead from his suppressed rage, but he still had to hold back the erupting flames of anger. "Where's the translator? Come here." A man in a military uniform, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, stepped out from behind and came before Lin Tianrui. He was Lin Tianrui's translator. Lin Tianrui looked at the triangular-eyed man and said, "Are you here to declare war on us?" The translator spoke to the triangular-eyed man in several languages. Unexpectedly, the triangular-eyed man spoke quite fluent Chinese. "You're the leader here?" Seeing that he could speak Chinese, Lin Tianrui told the translator to step aside and spoke to him directly. I am the leader of the Dongxi nation. My name is Li Shi." The triangular-eyed man introduced himself. "My subordinate sent a message last time." Lin Tianrui clenched his fists. "About borrowing the icebreaker." The triangular-eyed man nodded, smirking, revealing a set of yellowed teeth. Between his teeth were a few shreds of bright red meat. "Yes, since you already know, hand over the icebreaker. Otherwise, today we will kill all the soldiers here and turn this shelter into a battlefield. You dare? Arrogant. Commander, let me fight them to the death. After hearing Li Shi's words, even the evolved couldn't hold back. Again with the guns. There are so many of us. Are we afraid of them? Leader, give the order. Let us teach these animals a lesson. Lin Tianrui's eyes darkened, as if he was considering it. At this moment, the triangular-eyed man pulled a man with a flat nose and high cheekbones from the crowd. This person spoke quite fluent Chinese. Our leader is not joking. Do you think we only have this much strength? The man sneered, took out a bamboo flute, and blew on it. Just then, outside the shelter, a pack of origin beasts suddenly appeared on the horizon. They surrounded the shelter, numbering over 200. Those are our mounts. We rode them here. I heard you call people with special abilities like us evolved. Well, let me tell you, these 100 people are all elite evolved warriors selected from brutal battlefields. And our leader is the strongest among us. Even if all 100 of us fought him together, we couldn't win. I advise you to think carefully about whether to lend us the icebreaker or not. This was a blatant threat. I'll give you 3 days. In 3 days, I want to see your icebreaker at the port. Li Shi finished speaking and stood up. With a mouth full of blood, combined with the scar on his face and his fierce eyes, he looked incredibly terrifying. He led his subordinates, preparing to leave. Wait. Lin Tianrui suddenly spoke up. Li Shi turned his head. What? Lin Tianrui said coldly. Leave our soldiers' bodies behind. This group of people intended to take the bodies of the soldiers they had just killed with them. The purpose of taking them was clear to everyone. A fire of rage burned in everyone's hearts. Their eyes, looking at this group, were filled with hatred and indignation. The Xia nation was once a powerful country. It had never allowed small countries to dare to act so arrogantly. Li Shi smirked, sneering. We came from afar and are a bit hungry. It's only right for you to treat us to some meat, isn't it? Lin Tianrui's voice was still very calm, but carried a sharp edge. When you are people, you're just a bunch of animals from afar. Did I say you could go? Lin Tianrui gave a signal. Immediately, a soldier pressed the switch to close the shelter's gate. The shelter's gate was normally powered and could be closed quickly. As soon as the switch was pressed, the heavy alloy door slammed shut. The high-cheekbone man who had threatened everyone earlier tried to rush forward to stop it, but they were already some distance from the door. As they rushed towards it, they were met with continuous fire from the nearby guards, forced to retreat under the dense barrage of bullets. With a loud bang, the gate was sealed shut, separating them from the beast pack. A fierce light flashed in Li Shi's eyes. He drew his knife and slashed swiftly towards Lin Tianrui. Wang Chao and a few others stepped forward, drawing their weapons to shield Lin Tianrui. In an instant, Wang Chao completed the gene unlocking process, quickly drawing his gun and firing at Li Shi. A contemptuous smile appeared on Li Shi's lips. His feet didn't stop. He deflected every bullet with his knife, his speed undiminished. He continued to charge towards Lin Tianrui, intent on killing him. Kill! Li Shi shouted in murderous Chinese. The people behind Li Shi dropped the soldiers' bodies, each drawing a knife from their waists. The evolved on Wang Chao's side had long been ready. Many of them forcibly activated their gene locks, took out their guns, and fired continuously at these foreign animals. As the distance between the two sides shortened, they drew their weapons and charged into battle. The battle between the two sides erupted in an instant. When Liao Bang rushed back to the shelter, he found many bloodstains in front of the gate. Some soldiers were covering up the bloodstains. It seemed a battle had taken place. The shelter gate was even closed. Liao Bang had to face a series of strict questions before being allowed inside. Liao Bang returned to his room and asked around, only to find out that in the half day he was gone, something major had happened at the shelter. Old Bang, let me tell you, those people had green faces and even ate people. I heard a soldier was gnawed to the bone. An old man with white hair pulled Liao Bang aside, his face full of fear. This was Old Wang, an acquaintance of Liao Bang's in the shelter. Is it that terrifying? Then Old Wang, you shouldn't go out for walks anymore. Liao Bang knew Old Wang was exaggerating, but he didn't expose him, just replied casually. At this time, there was another person next to Liao Bang. His face was young, but his expression was far beyond his years. It was none other than Wang Liang. Liao Bang looked at Wang Liang, who nodded at him. The two said goodbye to old Wang and returned to Liao Bang's room. What happened? It was a coincidence. One day, Wang Liang was being bullied while working because he was young. Liao Bang stood up for him. Since then, the two had become close friends, getting along better and better. Last time, Liao Bang saved the child and received 10 gene elixirs. He used 3 and intended to give the remaining 7 to Lin Shi, but Lin Shi didn't accept them. Liao Bang gave 1 to Wang Liang. Unexpectedly, after taking it, he unlocked his genes and became an evolved. According to the military's talent standards for absorbing origin power, Wang Liang was A-grade. A few days ago, Wang Liang had joined the evolved team. Now, he was very grateful to and dependent on Liao Bang. After closing the door, Wang Liang said softly, "Brother Liao, this afternoon, more than 100 foreigners stormed the shelter and killed dozens of soldiers. Then, Captain Wang led our team to assemble and killed dozens of them. More than 10 escaped. On our side, more than 30 people died. Such heavy casualties? Doesn't our shelter have several hundred evolved?" Liao Bang was surprised. Wang Liang counted on his fingers, thinking as he spoke, it was mainly their leader. "I heard he's a Tier 3 evolved. Most of the ones who escaped were Tier 2 evolved. That Tier 3 evolved is named Li Shi. He's very brutal. Most of our people died at his hands. Luckily, there was a sister in the team who managed to stop him. Oh right, her name is Qin Shuang. I heard from my teammates that she used to be a captain, but now she's just a vice captain due to some incident. She's really amazing. I heard the captain say that Sister Qin Shuang unlocked her Tier 3 genes today. Otherwise, we would have lost a few more people. Oh right, this group of people also tamed mutated beasts. I heard there were about 200 Tier 1 mutated beasts outside the city this time, but the soldiers shot more than 100 of them. Just now, I even saw old lady Wang next door saying she wanted to go see what the mutated beasts look like." Wang Liang recounted everything that happened in the afternoon to Liao Bang in detail. Liao Bang listened and nodded attentively, seeing how Wang Liang was unguardedly sharing information about the evolved team with him. At first, he felt some sympathy for this boy who had no relatives. But after Wang Liang accidentally unlocked his genes, Liao Bang's mentality changed slightly. He decided to use this teenager to spy on information within the military for Lin Shi. Although Wang Liang was a good boy, Liao Bang's life belonged to Lin Shi. Naturally, Lin Shi was his top priority. Liao Bang felt that Wang Liang had great potential and might become a powerful asset for Lin Shi in the future. Liao Bang didn't know that Qin Shuang was doing the same thing. The only difference was that her goal was different from Liao Bang's. She wanted to become stronger. As for Wang Liang, his deepest thought was to repay those who had helped him, like Liao Bang, like Lin Shi. He wanted to become strong to repay them. These 3 people, all connected to Lin Shi, didn't know that the person they wanted to repay was actually the same person. As for Lin Shi, he himself never intended for these 3 to do anything for him. Lin Shi studied the map and found that if Sha City was currently being attacked by foreigners, the highest probability was from the small countries near Sha City, which is the southern region of the Xia Nation. On the map, Lin Shi marked a few countries. It was very difficult for other countries to reach the Xia Nation in a short time. The journey was long, and they couldn't quickly clash with Sha City. He marked these countries because they were only one province away from Sha City. These countries were already chaotic before the apocalypse, often involved in gray and black industries, especially the Mian and Zhong nations. If Sha City currently had more than one military unit, it would take only a few minutes to wipe out these small countries. Unfortunately, distant water can't put out a nearby fire. The military units had lost contact not only because of the long distance. Even if it were Lin Tianrui, he couldn't quickly reach Sha City. After all, the Xia Nation was vast, and the military units were stationed far apart. Lin Shi put away the map. Sha City, under official management, had been very peaceful. He lived peacefully in Sha City, both living and improving his strength. Now, with a group of uninvited guests, it was like a garden full of delicious food suddenly had a group of thieves staring at it. As long as he still lived here, trouble would find him sooner or later. That night, Lin Shi ate a simple meal and continued to train his mental force. He planned to go into the city tomorrow to check things out. The situation. If he met those pests, Lin Shi sneered coldly. Not only origin beasts, the origin power of evolved could also be absorbed by the treasure-gathering basin. A night of Lin Shi diligently training his mental force passed. But for many people, it was a sleepless night. The industrial park north of Sha City. Inside a factory, more than 10 people were gathered around several bonfires. Each person held a large piece of bone-in meat, gnawing on it with relish. On the bonfires, many other things were being skewered and roasted. Grease dripped down, and the entire factory was filled with a strange smell of meat. Getting closer to the bonfires, one could see that the things being roasted were actually human body parts, ribs, and even internal organs. In a dark corner, untouched by the firelight, 10 skulls with contorted faces and bulging eyes were casually thrown about. Their eyes seemed to be staring at the people eating like wild beasts by the fire. In the flickering firelight, Li Shi's gloomy face appeared and then disappeared into the darkness. "Leader, are we just going to let it be?" The speaker was the man with high cheekbones who had made a solemn vow in front of Lin Tianrui. He was from the Yao nation, named Gong Mala, a Tier 2 evolved. He was originally just a tour guide. When the solar storm caused the extreme cold, the country fell into chaos. He was lucky enough to unlock his genes, then led a group of armed men to rebel and declare himself king. As a result, not long after, he was invaded by a neighboring country. To say invaded, it was actually because the neighboring Pu nation was too small, with scarce resources. Many people fled to surrounding countries to plunder. Killing. For the people of the Xia nation, that distance was like going to another city or district. Therefore, these countries quickly fell into greater chaos, far more brutal than other regions of the Xia nation. Looking at this team, you could immediately see people from many different countries. These survivors had all been through hell. Compared to Sha City was the most peaceful, safe, and best place among the countries surrounding the Xia nation. After the daytime battle, Li Shi's expression was no longer the decisive one from before, but frighteningly gloomy. Just like this, Li Shi looked coldly at Gong Mala. Gong Mala felt a chill run down his spine and quickly corrected himself. Both I and Gong Mala can't swallow this anger. The brothers feel the same. "Leader, what's next? Just say the word, and we'll fight those Xia nation people to the death." Li Shi looked intently, observing the remaining people in the factory. His voice was hoarse and unpleasant. "We lost 83 people. 124 mutant beasts died. 36 ran away. Now there are less than 40 outside. This loss absolutely cannot be ignored. These people's taming of origin beasts was not thorough. During the day, they were shot by the soldiers on the city wall. Many died, some fled. The remaining ones, most showed signs of betrayal and could flee at any time. What should we do? Gong Mala asked. Wait, this place has so many two-legged sheep. What's wrong with staying here a little longer? We will definitely find an opportunity. This place is like heaven now. I will turn it into hell. At this moment, Li Shi's face was like a venomous snake, hiding in the dark, waiting for the right moment to strike a fatal blow. What about the people in the tribe? Gong Mala asked. They had set out with their most elite evolved. Gong Mala was worried that if they stayed here too long, when they returned to the tribe, all the survivors would be dead. Unexpectedly, Li Shi just sneered and said something unbelievable. Those useless food reserves, if they die, they die. There are more here, aren't there? Most of the remaining people in the factory didn't understand what Li Shi was saying, because the two were speaking in the Xia language. Only Gong Mala, despite the cold night, was sweating profusely. He clenched his fingers and nodded reluctantly. The next day, Lin Shi was about to go out when he saw a fierce blizzard outside, forcing him to return to the safe room. He sent the clouded leopard and the long-armed ape out to clear the snow, while he himself continued to train his mental force in the room. He initially thought the blizzard would end soon, but it lasted for more than a month. 3 days before the first Lunar New Year of the apocalypse, the longest blizzard ever finally stopped. At this time, Sha City had completely changed. Lin Shi opened the door, and it was all snow. Last night, the snow had buried the safe room. Lin Shi used his spatial connection ability to release the clouded leopard and the long-armed ape, placing them on the snow. The two beasts immediately started clearing the snow, quickly clearing the entrance to the safe room. Lin Shi stepped out of the room, feeling the long unseen sunlight. Although it wasn't warm, it still brought a pleasant feeling. No one wants to live forever in an environment without sunlight. Standing on the mountaintop, Lin Shi looked down. The entire Wulong village had disappeared under a thick layer of snow. This small mountain was also half buried. Looking into the distance, all he could see was a vast expanse of white. Just snow and more snow. Looking towards the town, more than half of the buildings were buried in snow. It was impossible to distinguish the roads. As long as there were no obstacles, everywhere was a road. If the survivors hadn't found shelter, this blizzard would have caused people in the city to starve or freeze to death. After recalling the clouded leopard and the long-armed ape into his space, Lin Shi didn't summon the Demon King, but used a snowboard to slide down the mountain. On the other side of Sha City, Li Shi and the others, seeing the sun after a long time, began their hunt again. Lin Shi, on his snowboard, sped down. He glided alone through the empty city. There were no footprints on the white snow. It seemed as if the whole sky and earth had become his private ski resort. This blizzard that lasted for more than a month also made it so that not a single origin beast could be seen in the city. Perhaps they had returned to the deep mountains to find food. Lin Shi sped from the western suburbs straight to the city center. Only then did he see a few figures. The survivors gathered in small groups, digging everywhere in the snow with shovels, trying to find something under the thick layer of snow. Lin Shi had done the same in his previous life. Whenever there was a rare sunny day, he would have to go out and dig all day, looking for useful things to exchange for food, or even directly digging up some food. Watching those people digging with such determination, a nostalgic look flashed in Lin Shi's eyes. His life this time was completely different from his previous life. The supplies in his space, along with the ability to replicate items, ensured that he would never be in want for the rest of his life. Lin Shi slid quickly through the crowd. After crossing a few streets, the road became flatter. He put away his snowboard, slung it on his back, and began to check his surroundings, looking for a hidden spot to release the Demon King as a means of transportation. Just then, Lin Shi's ears twitched. "Help! Save us!" Lin Shi looked up. On a high floor of a building along the mandatory path, a loud cry was heard. A woman in ragged clothes was holding a child who only came up to her waist, standing at the window, waving her hand and crying for help. A rope was tied to the window, extending down to the ground. "We're trapped. Can you help get this child down? Please, kind sir, the child is too small. He can't climb down, and I'm a weak woman, I can't carry him." But Lin Shi just glanced at them and continued walking. The cries from upstairs grew louder. "Kind sir, please help us. I can give you some food as a reward." No matter how the woman shouted, Lin Shi acted as if he didn't hear, not even bothering to look up again, until he reached the foot of the building where the woman was crying for help. Suddenly, a sound of something tearing through the air came from above. Lin Shi's figure moved slightly. A huge, basin-shaped block of ice fell from the sky, hitting the exact path Lin Shi was about to take. With a dull thud, a pit more than a meter deep and as wide as a basin appeared in the snow. The snow was so thick, yet it was smashed into a large pit by the block of ice. Needless to say, if it had hit a person, they would have undoubtedly died. "You're so cruel. If you won't save us, then you can just die," the woman above shouted as she pulled the rope back inside. It was clear she knew that if she didn't quickly pull the rope back, someone might climb up to retaliate. Seeing Lin Shi safely avoided, and even look up at her, the woman continued to curse. "Why didn't it smash you to death? What a waste of my big block of ice. I curse you to a horrible death. Sooner or later, you'll be eaten by the beasts out there." Lin Shi's eyes narrowed slightly, his body sinking a little. As two deep footprints appeared in the snow, his whole body shot up, jumping straight to the height of the floor where the woman was standing. The woman's hand, which was pulling the rope, suddenly stopped. She looked at Lin Shi in disbelief, not even realizing that the rope in her hand had fallen to the ground. It wasn't until Lin Shi grabbed the windowsill, kicked the woman, sending her flying into the room, and then flipped over the window, that the woman seemed to wake from a dream. Her eyes were filled with terror. She fell to her knees on the cold ground with a thud, her head touching the floor. "Evolved Lord, please spare my life. Spare my life. I was talking nonsense just now. Please, just let it go like the wind." All the doors in the apartment were wide open. The inside was cleaner than if it had been swept by a storm. At this moment, besides the woman, There was only a child she was holding tightly. Seeing the woman kicked away, the child quickly ran to her arms, turning his back to Lin Shi and trembling. "My child is so young, please spare us. I was blinded by greed just now. I won't dare to do it again." The woman begged, as if Lin Shi would be an unforgivable sinner if he laid a hand on them. If Lin Shi were an ordinary person, that heavy object thrown from above would have killed him. Lin Shi's eyes were cold. He walked towards the two, his killing intent radiating from him. Seeing that Lin Shi was unmoved, the woman seemed a little panicked. She hugged the child tightly in her arms, then pushed him towards Lin Shi with all her might. "Little monster, run." As soon as she finished speaking, a short, gleaming knife flashed in Lin Shi's vision. The child holding the short knife suddenly looked up, the scarf wrapped around his face falling off, revealing the bearded face of a middle-aged man. This was no child. It was clearly a male dwarf. Only because of his small stature, plus being wrapped up tightly, did he look like a child from a distance. A sick, malicious look appeared in the woman's eyes. She pulled a gun with a silencer from her clothes, aimed it straight at Lin Shi, and shouted at the same time, "Do it." "Haha, didn't expect that, did you? You damn man, die." The gun in her hand was aimed at Lin Shi's head, while the short knife in the dwarf's hand stabbed straight at his heart. The dwarf's face revealed a ferocious smile. At such a close distance, they had never failed. After all, he was an evolved. This wasn't the first time these two had worked together to do such things. They used the pity of some survivors to lure them upstairs. If the person downstairs didn't fall for the trap, the woman would use the block of ice to provoke the opponent, making them find a way to climb up. Of course, if they could be killed directly, that would be even better. They could go down and collect the body. After the opponent came upstairs, the two would act weak and beg for forgiveness, making the opponent lower their guard. At the same time, when they found that there were only a mother and child in this room, most people would relax their guard and even feel pity. And at that moment, they would easily kill the opponent. Before Lin Shi, many people had been killed by these two working together. Among them were even an evolved and two lone soldiers. Seeing Lin Shi standing still, the dwarf didn't notice Lin Shi's unchanged expression. The woman thought that Lin Shi was scared stiff. But they didn't know that, from downstairs, Lin Shi had already used his mental force to see the situation in this room and knew exactly what kind of people these two were. This kind of person was not unique in the apocalyptic world. He had originally intended to ignore them, but he didn't expect these two to seek death themselves. So today, he would do a good deed and send these two to hell. Lin Shi caught the short knife in the dwarf's hand with his bare hands, while tilting his head to avoid the bullet from the woman's gun. In the next instant, the short knife in the dwarf's hand made a cracking sound. Lin Shi held the latter half of the blade, and with a flick of his wrist, the half-blade flew straight towards the woman who was about to pull the trigger. With a soft thud of a knife cutting into flesh, the broken blade sliced through the woman's shoulder, severing 2/3 of her arm. Only a little bit of skin and flesh connected the arm to the shoulder, dangling precariously. The woman let out a piercing scream like a pig being slaughtered. As for the dwarf, after his knife was broken, his throat was tightly gripped by Lin Shi. The broken knife in his hand fell to the ground with a clatter. He struggled desperately, trying with all his might to break Lin Shi's steel-like hand, his face turning red from lack of oxygen. "Spare me." At this moment, he finally realized that he had messed with a real powerhouse this time. Lin Shi put on his snowboard and sped down, gliding through the city like a phantom. On the white snow, there was not a single footprint. The entire world seemed to be his private ski resort. The blizzard that lasted for more than a month had cleared the city of any origin beasts. They must have all gone back to the deep mountains to find food. Lin Shi sped from the western suburbs all the way into the city before he saw a few figures. Several groups of survivors, holding shovels, were digging in the snow, searching for something under the thick layer of snow. In his previous life, Lin Shi had done the same. Whenever the sun came out, he would have to dig all day outdoors, looking for things to trade for food, or digging up something to eat on the spot. Seeing the people digging so hard, a nostalgic look flashed in Lin Shi's eyes. In this life, he was completely different from his previous life. The space filled with supplies and the ability to replicate items ensured he would have enough for a lifetime. Lin Shi snowboarded quickly past those people. After a few streets, the road became flatter. Lin Shi put the snowboard on his back, looked around, and searched for a hidden place to release the Demon King to walk. Just then, Lin Shi heard a sound. Help! Save us! Lin Shi looked up. On the road ahead, from a tall building, came a desperate cry for help. A woman in ragged clothes, holding a child who only came up to her waist, was waving from a window towards Lin Shi. She cried for help repeatedly. A rope was tied to the window, hanging down to the ground. We're trapped. Please help me get the child down. Please, sir. He's too small to climb down. I'm too weak to carry him. But Lin Shi just glanced at them and continued walking. The cries for help from upstairs grew louder. Please help us. I'll give you some food as a reward. No matter how the woman cried for help, Lin Shi acted as if he didn't hear, not even bothering to look up again, until he reached the bottom of the building where the woman was crying for help. Suddenly, there was a whistling sound from above. Lin Shi moved slightly. A block of ice as big as a wash basin fell from the sky, hitting the exact spot Lin Shi was about to walk on. With a dull thud, a pit more than a meter deep and as wide as a wash basin appeared in the snow. The block of ice was so large that it created a hole in the ground. Needless to say, if it had hit a person, they would have undoubtedly died. You're so cruel. If you won't save us, you can go to hell too. The woman on the upper floor screamed as she pulled the rope in. She clearly knew that if she didn't pull the rope back, someone would climb up to take revenge. Seeing Lin Shi safely dodge it, and even look up at her, the woman continued to curse. Why didn't it smash you to death? What a waste of my big block of ice. I curse you to a horrible death. Sooner or later, you'll be eaten by beasts. Lin Shi narrowed his eyes, his lips pursed. 2 deep footprints appeared in the snow. His whole body shot up, instantly reaching the level of the floor where the woman was. The woman who was pulling the rope stopped. She looked at Lin Shi in disbelief. The rope in her hand fell to the ground without her noticing, until Lin Shi climbed onto the windowsill, kicked the woman into the middle of the room, and then turned and stepped through the window. The woman seemed to wake from a dream, her eyes filled with fear. With a thud, she knelt on the cold ground, banging her head on the floor. Evolved Lord, spare my life. Spare me. I was talking nonsense just now. Please, just let it go like the wind. This room, all the doors were wide open. The inside was cleaner than after a storm. The room only had 2 people, the woman and a child she was holding tightly. Seeing the woman kicked away, the child quickly ran to hug her, his back to Lin Shi, trembling. My child is so young, please spare us. I was blinded by greed just now. I won't dare to do it again. The woman pleaded miserably, as if Lin Shi would be committing a heinous crime if he laid a hand on them. If Lin Shi hadn't been an extraordinary person, that high-arc throw just now would have been enough to kill him. Lin Shi's eyes were cold. He approached the 2, his killing intent radiating around him. Seeing that Lin Shi was unmoved, the woman seemed flustered. She hugged the child tightly and pushed him hard towards Lin Shi. My dear, run. As soon as she finished speaking, a cold, gleaming short blade flashed into Lin Shi's eyes. The child holding the knife suddenly looked up. The scarf covering his face fell off, revealing the face of a middle-aged man with a bushy beard. It turned out not to be a child, but a dwarf man. It was only because he was so short and was wrapped up tightly that he looked like a child from a distance. A sick, malicious look appeared in the woman's eyes. She pulled a pistol with a silencer from her clothes, aimed it straight at Lin Shi, and sneered. Didn't expect that, did you? You bastard, die. Her gun was aimed at Lin Shi's head, while the dwarf's knife stabbed straight at his heart. The dwarf man smiled ferociously. At this distance, they had never failed. After all, he was an evolved. This wasn't the first time the 2 had worked together. Before, they used the kindness of survivors to lure them upstairs. If the person downstairs didn't take the bait, the woman would use something, like a block of ice, to provoke them, making them find a way to climb up. Of course, killing them outright was the best way, so they could go down and pick up the corpse. Once the opponent was upstairs, the 2 would act weak, begging for forgiveness, making them lose their guard. At the same time, seeing only a mother and child in the room, most people would let down their guard, even feel pity. Then they would be easily killed by the 2. Before Lin Shi, many people had been killed by them, including an evolved and 2 stray soldiers. Seeing Lin Shi standing motionless, the dwarf man didn't notice Lin Shi's unchanging expression. The woman thought he was shocked. They didn't know that from downstairs, Lin Shi had already used his mental ability to see the situation in the room and knew the true faces of these two. This kind of person was not rare in the apocalypse. He had intended to walk straight past. He didn't expect the two to seek death. So today, he would do a good deed and send the two to hell. Lin Shi didn't need a weapon to grab the dwarf's knife. At the same time, he tilted his head to dodge the bullet from the woman's gun. A second later, the knife in the dwarf's hand made a crisp cracking sound. Lin Shi held half the blade, and with a flick of his wrist, the half-blade flew towards the woman who was about to shoot. A sound of a knife sinking into flesh. The broken blade cut through the woman's shoulder, severing almost her entire arm. Only a little bit of skin and flesh kept the arm connected to the shoulder, shaking slightly. The woman screamed like a pig being slaughtered. As for the dwarf, Lin Shi grabbed his throat. The knife fell to the ground with a clatter. The dwarf struggled in Lin Shi's iron-like grip, his face turning red from lack of oxygen. Ugh, spare me. Only now did he realize he had messed with an opponent who was not to be trifled with. The woman screamed tragically from the intense pain in her arm. Lin Shi kicked her chin hard, shattering her jawbone, leaving only a miserable moan. He used his other hand to break both of the dwarf's arms, then asked, "Tell me, how many people have you two tricked with this method?" The dwarf's eyes were filled with tears of pain, not daring to resist. He recounted every person they had killed. These two had used this trick to kill 16 people. Among them, 3 were killed because they took pity and wanted to take the woman and child away. Most of the others were provoked and then murdered with their cunning scheme. There was even an evolved and 2 stray soldiers. After killing them, they would loot the valuables from the victims' bodies. The gun the woman was holding was taken from the corpse of a soldier. They didn't spare the corpses either. Not to eat, because Sha City still provided food. They chopped the victims' bodies into pieces and transported them to the sea area outside Sha City. There, someone specialized in buying corpses. 100 caddies of corpse for 5 caddies of food. This was a lucrative business for them. Lin Shi asked, "Where?" Lin Shi didn't expect that in the sea area outside Sha City, there would be people using food to trade for human flesh. Normally, unless one was starving to death, people wouldn't eat human flesh. The fact that those people were using food to trade for corpses proved they weren't lacking food. Leave Sha City, head west. After a while, you'll see the signs they made. Follow those signs straight to a place with a red flag. There's a snow house there. They buy human flesh there. The dwarf had been there many times and remembered it clearly. "Who are they?" Lin Shi asked. The dwarf thought for a moment. From their accents, they seemed to be from the Mian and Zhong nations. But every time I go, there's a Xia language translator to guide me. Lin Shi's eyes grew colder. He knew that the people there were savage and ate anything. "So, you sell the bodies of Xia people to foreigners for food, in exchange for food for yourselves? Doesn't the shelter still provide food?" The dwarf answered without hesitation. "That little bit is not enough to eat. Ever since I became an evolved, I get hungry easily. The two of us sharing, it's not even enough for me alone." The dwarf's tone was full of dissatisfaction, as if he was blaming the shelter for not feeding him enough, which was why he had to do this. The corner of Lin Shi's mouth twitched slightly, but his eyes were as cold as ice. If the Demon King were here, it would know that Lin Shi was angry. His voice was still normal. "If you joined the shelter's evolved team, you would probably get more food." The evolved team? Who doesn't know that joining the shelter's evolved team is a death sentence? How many evolved have joined and died in the past few months? "I don't want to die." Because he was afraid of death, to eat his fill, he killed people and sold their bodies to foreigners to eat. Especially among them were 2 soldiers who were killed because they wanted to help them out of pity. The image of Li Wei appeared in Lin Shi's mind. The dwarf suddenly stopped, as if he remembered something, and asked in panic, "Who? You're not from the evolved team, are you?" As soon as he finished speaking, the dwarf almost forgot he was still in someone else's hands. "I'm not." "That's good. Big brother, can you let us go? I'll show you where we hide our stuff. Killing us won't get you anything." The dwarf looked at Lin Shi with anticipation, his eyes full of desire. In his heart, he had secretly decided that once he left, he would find another woman, change locations, and continue fishing. The dying accomplice behind him had already been discarded like a useless piece of trash. Have you ever tried that kind of meat? Lin-Sher suddenly asked. The dwarf was stunned, his expression immediately becoming awkward. That expression was his answer. He gripped the dwarf's arm and said slowly, I used to hate the kind of animal that eats human flesh the most. Now I hate it even more when my own people are fed to those animals. With that, Lin-Sher squeezed, and the dwarf's arm was torn off. The dwarf let out a tragic scream and immediately begged for mercy. But how could Lin-Sher let him go? He had originally come here to kill these two. But after hearing the dwarf's story, he didn't want them to die so easily. A dozen minutes later, Lin-Sher jumped out of the window and left. The room Lin-Sher had been in was now like hell. Anyone who entered would see two tattered corpses lying in a pool of blood, their faces still showing terror and death. Their limbs were scattered around, but the flesh on them was gone, leaving only bone and blood. This brutal scene was created by Lin-Sher. Of course, he didn't think he was cruel. When dealing with this kind of person, no method was too extreme. Lin-Sher admitted he wasn't a good person, but he was still a person. As for those two, they were worse than animals. Lin-Sher summoned the Demon King from his space and ran straight to Dongjiao before stopping. It wasn't that Lin-Sher stopped to think. It was that as soon as he entered Dongjiao, he saw the road ahead was full of large pits. The Demon King jumped over one pit, only to almost fall into another. Recalling the Demon King, Lin-Sher continued on foot. Dongjiao had more than 10 times the number of survivors than other places. There were even military patrols passing by. No wonder the survivors called this a safe zone. Perhaps because it had been sealed off by the heavy snow for a long time. Now that the sun was out, many survivors from the shelter ran out to look for things. The entire Dongjiao was dug up. Lin-Sher found a road that hadn't been dug. It turned out the government had long banned digging on some major roads. Otherwise, the entire Dongjiao would probably have been dug into a mess of holes by now. As Lin-Sher was walking, the sound of gunfire and chaos suddenly erupted in the distance. His ears twitched. Could it be that an origin beast had appeared again? Before Lin-Sher could determine which direction the sound was coming from, the sound of heavy footsteps quickly approached him on this road. He observed with his mental force and saw 5 people riding 5 wolves speeding towards him. They quickly appeared in Lin-Sher's line of sight. These 5 people had ferocious faces, fierce eyes, and exuded a murderous aura. From the origin power fluctuations on their bodies, he could feel that all 5 were cultivators. Among them, 3 were Tier 2, and 2 were Tier 1. The wolves under them were also all origin beasts. When Lin-Sher saw this scene, his first reaction was that this was a tamed beast army. But he immediately dismissed that thought. Because in front of or behind each person, on the backs of the Tier 1 wolves, there was a survivor clinging on, their life hanging by a thread. The gunshots were coming from behind these people. It was just that these 5 people were too fast. The 2-legged soldiers couldn't possibly catch up. Only a few cultivators were chasing, but the distance between the 2 sides was only getting larger. These 5 wolf riders were Li Shi's subordinates. The blizzard had lasted for more than a month. Due to hunger, Li Shi and his dozen or so subordinates had eaten the few remaining mounts. Now that the sky had cleared, they naturally had to go hunting. Li Shi divided the dozen or so people into 3 teams to hunt separately. Their prey, of course, was humans. The hunting method was very simple. Ride wolves into places with survivors. Capture them, tie them to the wolves' backs, and then flee. To prevent the survivors from struggling, those who were captured would be killed immediately. Thanks to the wolves' 4 legs, the 5 people quickly escaped the soldiers' firing range. 2 of them even turned back, taunting the soldiers who couldn't catch up with provocative gestures, then burst into triumphant laughter. Wahaha! But not long after, the 5 people and 5 wolves saw Lin-Sher standing in the middle of the road. Seeing Lin-Sher, they not only didn't slow down, but also showed cruel smiles. They controlled the wolves to charge towards Lin-Sher. The survivors who had been hit by the wolves before had been severely injured by the powerful impact. Seeing Lin-Sher's simple, even plain, attire, it was clear he wasn't in the military. They thought Lin-Sher was nothing to be afraid of. One of them mumbled something, then drew a sickle-like weapon from his waist, preparing to attack. It was clear they intended to kill Lin-Sher and take him back to eat. Unfortunately, they only calculated the first step, not the last. Just as the wolf charged in front of Lin Shi ducked, quickly drew the military knife from his waist, and slashed at the front leg of the leading wolf. The blade and the wolf's leg met. The wolf fell into the snow, and the person on its back was also thrown off. It happened too fast, but the remaining people were all seasoned veterans who had lived on the edge of a knife. They reacted extremely quickly, immediately drawing their weapons. Unfortunately, Lin Shi was even faster. In an instant, the second wolf's leg was also severed by Lin Shi. Immediately, Lin Shi slashed at the third wolf's leg. On this wolf's back was the one who had just drawn the sickle. This person bent down, clinging to the wolf's fur, and swung the sharp sickle towards Lin Shi's head. These people were riding wolves. If Lin Shi didn't jump up, he couldn't attack their vital points. But if he jumped, he would easily expose a weakness in midair. When facing a strong enemy, it's easy to become passive. Lin Shi never underestimated any enemy. Therefore, he chose to take down their mounts first. Seeing that person bowing his head to die, Lin Shi flicked his wrist. A large head rolled onto the snowy ground, rolling far due to inertia. In just an instant, 4 wolves were injured, 1 enemy was dead, and the remaining 4 were thrown from the wolves' backs. The remaining 4 looked at each other, growled a few times, and charged at Lin Shi. When the official evolved team arrived, they only saw 5 corpses and blood all over the ground. The 5 giant wolves and 5 foreigners had vanished without a trace. Where are those animals? Did they abandon the bodies and run? Doesn't seem like it. Why would those animals ignore these corpses? Look, there's much more blood here than for 5 people. The wolf's paw prints also end here. Maybe they were killed by another mutant beast or another evolved. There are no other mutant beast tracks here, only human footprints. Could it be that they were all killed by one person? Who could be so fast and strong? The group studied the messy footprints on the ground, but came up with nothing. Lin Shi, with his tier 4 strength, killed these animals as easily as turning his hand. It only took a few breaths to finish off the 5 people and 5 wolves. Therefore, the chasing evolved team didn't see Lin Shi's fight at all. The battle was beyond their comprehension. The team quickly reported back and temporarily buried the corpses on the spot. As for Lin Shi, he had already collected the corpses of the wolves and the foreign evolved into his storage space. He would never let his origin beast legion eat people, but the treasure-gathering basin could absorb origin power from the corpses of evolved. It couldn't be wasted. With no obstacles on the road, Lin Shi released the Demon King from his space. A dozen minutes later, 1 man and 1 dog arrived in front of the shelter. The appearance of Lin Shi and the Demon King caused a small stir and commotion. Wang Chao immediately ran out to greet them. Comrade number 2, long time no see. The commander is making tea in his office. Follow me. Lin Shi followed Wang Chao into the shelter. This time, Lin Shi came to discuss the forging of origin weapons with Lin Tianrui. After a long period of research, the officials had figured out the forging method. Ever since using the Qi Yun origin weapon, Lin Shi felt something was missing when he used the heaven-cleaving axe again, and the Qi Yun sword was too light. If he could use origin materials to reforge the heaven-cleaving axe, increase its weight, and add Lin Shi's strength and origin power, it would basically be indestructible. At that time, his combat power would definitely soar. This time, he naturally brought the Demon King into the shelter. The Demon King was a deterrent force. It was also a form of protection. Although Lin Shi didn't think the officials would suddenly make a move against him, he still had to be on guard. With the Demon King's support, Lin Shi didn't believe there was anything in the shelter that could control him. Wang Chao chatted with Lin Shi, quickly leading him to the central square of the shelter, a place Lin Shi had been to before. Today, there were more survivors active inside and outside the shelter than before. So on the way, Lin Shi was constantly noticed by people. Perhaps Lin Tianrui had shown everyone in the shelter the training footage of the Demon King and Lin Shi. When these people saw such a huge Demon King, not only were they not afraid, they even stood far away to watch the excitement, their faces full of surprise. Among them were Liao Bang and Wang Liang, who happened to be preparing to go for lunch. When Wang Liang saw Lin Shi from a distance, his face immediately became excited, and his breathing quickened. Just as he was about to call out, Wang Liang suddenly remembered where he was. He also remembered Lin Shi's previous warning not to mention him in front of others. Liao Bang remained calm, only a flash in his eyes before returning to normal. He looked at Wang Liang with a puzzled expression. "What's wrong, kid?" Wang Liang quickly waved his hand. "Seeing such a big wolf, I'm scared. The leader has already said, that person and that wolf are friends of our shelter, so there's no need to be afraid." After Liao Bang finished speaking, he glanced around. Seeing everyone looking at the departing Lin Shi and the Demon King with fear and admiration, a sense of pride welled up in him. This was his boss, so powerful. And that big wolf had even saved him. Lin Shi still had the Demon King wait below Lin Tianrui's dormitory, while he himself, familiar with the way, went straight to Lin Tianrui's office. When his mental force swept over, Lin Shi discovered that today in the office, it wasn't just Lin Tianrui, but also two old men with graying hair. Seeing those two people through the image of his mental force, Lin Shi's pupils contracted and his footsteps paused. The two old men sitting in Lin Tianrui's office were Xia Guohuang and Lin Honglong. Before the apocalypse, these two were the pillars of the Xia nation. Lin Shi had seen them on TV countless times. This was the first time in this life that Lin Shi had seen them at such a close distance. To say he wasn't a little excited would be impossible. The three people in the room were silent, obviously having received the news, and were waiting for Lin Shi. Lin Shi took a deep breath, suppressed his emotions, and then stepped into the office. Lin Tianrui was sitting on the sofa, looking at the stainless steel cup in front of him, lost in thought. Seeing Lin Shi arrive, Lin Tianrui smiled and stood up. "Brotherly, you're here. Come, sit down, have a cup of hot tea." After speaking, Lin Tianrui poured the pre-made tea from the thermos next to him. The tea was still steaming as it was poured from the thermos, but when it was poured into the cup, the steam almost disappeared. Lin Tianrui quickly invited Lin Shi. "You just came in from outside. Have some hot tea to warm up." At this temperature, even indoors, most liquids would quickly freeze. Lin Shi picked up the teacup, brought it to his lips, then pretended to take a sip and put it down. Tea leaves were a rare commodity in the apocalypse. It was difficult to grow them under the current conditions. Lin Shi didn't drink because he had forgotten to be wary of anyone. Lin Tianrui seemed not to notice Lin Shi's vigilance. He looked at the two people beside him and said with a smile, "You know these two, right? No need for me to introduce them." Lin Shi nodded, his voice as usual. "I know them. I've seen them on TV." Xia Guohuang smiled kindly and nodded a greeting to Lin Shi. Lin Honglong, on the other hand, spoke in a loud voice. "So, you're the Li Heo that Tianrui keeps telling me about, right? Not bad. Just for your composure and courage, I already think highly of you." If someone else were praised by Lin Honglong, they would probably be very excited and show it. But Lin Shi said nothing more. The atmosphere suddenly became cold. Actually, Lin Shi had a rather obvious flaw, which was his somewhat eccentric personality. He wasn't good at socializing. This weakness became even more pronounced after being betrayed by Zhao Qian. Lin Tianrui spoke up to break the silence. "Brotherly, what brings you here this time? One doesn't visit a temple without a reason." The three people in this office all understood that someone like Lin Shi coming here was definitely not a simple matter. Therefore, only Lin Shi, Xia Guohuang, and Lin Honglong were allowed into Lin Tianrui's office. Lin Shi got straight to the point. "I came here to ask Leader Lin for a favor." Hearing this, Lin Tianrui stood up straight, his expression serious. "Brotherly, just say it. You've helped us many times. As long as I can do it, I definitely will." Lin Shi smiled and said, "I wonder how well you have mastered the technique of forging origin weapons now." While Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui were discussing origin weapons, Qi Yun at the shelter received news that Lin Shi had arrived. Since then, he had had people search the entire shelter. After that, he no longer had his subordinates check people coming in and out at the gate, because continuing to do so would easily arouse Lin Tianrui's suspicion. Lin Shi's arrival at the shelter was so high profile that Chi immediately ran to Qi Yun's room upon receiving the news. "Young master, that guy is here again. Should we make a move this time?" Chi stood in front of Qi Yun, making a throat-slitting gesture, a murderous look in his eyes. Qi stood beside Qi Yun, seemingly having been there for a long time. Qi's aura was completely different from when he fought the saber-toothed sword before. After losing an arm, Qi had unlocked his Tier 3 genes in 2 months, becoming a Tier 3 evolved. Thanks to this, Qi Yi temporarily kept his life. In the Qi family, useless people would be eliminated. At this time, Qi Yin was reading an ancient book. Hearing this, he looked up at Qi Qi. You go kill him. Qi Qi's face stiffened. That guy's battle beast is completely different from the information we gathered before. It's very likely it has evolved to Tier 4. You've all experienced its power. Just a few of us, forget it. Qi Qi was unwilling. Are we just going to swallow this loss again? That wolf evolved so quickly. The saber-toothed sword must have fallen into his hands. Young master, I can't swallow this anger. When you're dead, you won't be angry anymore. Qi Yin didn't look up. No one knew what Qi Yin was thinking. He lost the precious sword, lost his prey, and was tricked once. Yet he wasn't angry at all. The room was filled only with the sound of Qi Yin flipping through the book. A long time later, Qi Yin closed the book and asked, "Still no news from Qi-san?" Qi Yi replied, "Not yet. But based on the time, Qi-san and the elders should be on their way here. They should be arriving soon. As long as Brother Li can provide the origin materials, I'll have someone else forge the other materials." Hearing that Lin Shi was here to forge an origin weapon, Lin Tianrui generously agreed without hesitation. Since the research team developed the method for forging origin weapons, they had only managed to create 3 pieces so far. The main problem was that the materials for forging origin weapons were too rare. Not all origin beasts could provide materials that could conduct origin power. The team had been operating for so long, with so many origin beasts, yet they had only collected 3 types of materials that could conduct origin power. At the same time, they discovered a pattern. The probability of obtaining materials from high-level origin beasts was higher, while from low-level origin beasts, the probability was very low. It was almost impossible for materials to appear on the body of a Tier 1 origin beast. So, it wasn't that Lin Tianrui was being stingy, but that he really didn't have enough to give. Moreover, the materials had a very important use in the team. How do you determine which materials can conduct origin power? Lin Shi asked. Brother Li, wait a moment. After speaking, Lin Tianrui stood up, walked to the door, and signaled a soldier. Go to the Scientific Research Institute and get an origin meter. Say I need it. The soldier took the order and left. Lin Tianrui returned to the office and explained to Lin Shi, our scientific research team has developed a measuring device that can be infused with origin power. We call it the origin meter. It can test for origin power and holds 100 points of material. To distinguish whether a mutant beast's material is an origin material, you just need to place the origin meter on the material. If it's an origin attribute material, a yellow light will turn on. If not, a red light will turn on. Moreover, it doesn't need electricity. It just consumes 10 points of origin power each time it's used. Lin Shi was extremely surprised. You're saying this origin meter uses origin power as its energy source? In just 2 short months, they were able to develop an origin meter that combined modern technology from a fragment of Qi Yun's weapon. Wasn't this speed a bit too fast? Lin Tianrui seemed very pleased with Lin Shi's surprise. His expression was slightly proud. That's right. Our shelter currently gathers a group of the most elite scientists from the Xia Nation. And origin power is an incredibly magical energy. Its application is much simpler than we rough people imagine. I can't explain the specifics. I can't explain it clearly anyway. But although this machine is magical, it still needs origin materials to be made. That's why I said, origin materials are extremely precious to us. Lin Tianrui smiled bitterly. They had hunted hundreds of origin beasts and only obtained 3 types of origin attribute materials. If they had more origin materials, they might be able to overturn the scientific and technological civilization that was on the brink of collapse and open a new chapter. Unfortunately, that seemed impossible at the moment. Lin Shi nodded. According to Lin Tianrui, the appearance rate of origin materials was so low that it was indeed impossible to conduct large-scale research and production. In Lin Shi's space, there were indeed many origin beast corpses, but he didn't know how many origin materials there were. Lin Tianrui looked towards Xia Guowang and suddenly sighed with emotion. Fortunately, we have Chief Xia, who used the icebreaker early on to gather these scientists. Xia Guowang smiled. I just did what I could. At this moment, Lin Shi suddenly remembered something and looked towards Xia Guowang. I've always had a question. How did you leaders know when that world-changing solar storm would arrive? Xia Guolong and Lin Honglong glanced at each other. Xia Guolong showed a look of regret and a hint of luck. Actually, all of our space monitoring equipment failed to detect that solar storm. It was as if it was concealed by a mysterious force. We only discovered it when it was about to approach Earth. But before we discovered the solar storm, one of my subordinates saw a post online. So when we discovered the solar storm really existed, I was already prepared for everything. Lin Shi's eyes under the mask flashed with a strange light. He had originally thought that no one would see that post. He didn't expect someone to see it and for it to have an effect. Lin Shi pretended to be surprised and asked, "A post? Someone on the internet posted a topic predicting the solar storm's arrival? Who could have such an ability? I don't know." The time was too short. When we discovered the solar storm was coming, there was a lot to do and it was very urgent. The technical department needed time to trace it. By the time the solar storm occurred, all electronic data was destroyed. Now we can't find the person who posted that topic anymore. At this, Xia Guolong sighed. Lin Shi blinked a few times, his mood complicated. Ahem. At this moment, the soldier who had gone to get the item returned and knocked on the door of Lin Tianrui's office. "Leader, the item has been retrieved." The soldier returned, and not alone. Two evolved escorted him from behind. The soldier solemnly placed the box down before bowing and leaving. Lin Tianrui carefully opened the box. Inside, on a soft cushion, lay an object resembling a handheld phone system from the 90s. There was only one button and a simple small screen on the body. Lin Tianrui picked up the origin meter and said to Lin Shi, "To use this, you have to charge it with origin power first." After speaking, Lin Tianrui held the origin meter without moving. The screen lit up, displaying numbers. 5, 15, 27, 49. Lin Shi clearly felt the fluctuation of origin power on Lin Tianrui. When the origin power fluctuation disappeared, the number on the origin meter stopped at 100. Currently, this origin meter can only hold 100 units of origin power. Any more, and it will be damaged, Lin Tianrui explained. Lin Shi had discovered from his first close contact with Lin Tianrui that he was an evolved, and a Tier 2 evolved at that. Becoming the commander of the Sha City Army, and now the leader of the official shelter of Sha City, Lin Shi was not surprised that Lin Tianrui was an evolved. What was surprising was that Lin Tianrui was so openly displaying his strength in front of him. The usage is very simple. Just place it on the material of an origin beast, press this button. If the yellow light turns on, it can conduct origin power, and it's an origin material. Brotherly, do you want to try? Lin Tianrui handed the origin meter to Lin Shi. Lin Shi took the small, palm-sized object. It was cold, made of metal. Although it looked simple, just thinking that it operated on origin power, Lin Shi found it very magical. He tried to scan the origin meter with his mental force. The structure was extremely simple. There were no familiar electronic components from before, no circuits. Inside, there was only an iron tube connected to the light, screen, and button. With just such a structure, it could operate such a complex device. No wonder Lin Tianrui said it wasn't as complicated as imagined. Lin Shi tried placing the origin meter on the stainless steel cup. Within the scan of his mental force, the origin power originally stored in the origin meter flowed out through the iron tube, then disappeared upon contact with the air. The light on the origin meter turned red. The red light stayed on for 3 seconds, then went out. Lin Shi blinked a few times. Lin Tianrui spoke up. "This is the test result." Lin Shi nodded and returned the device to Lin Tianrui. "If it's just testing materials, you could just have an evolved try to channel origin power into it. You'd know immediately if it's an origin material or not. This machine has to be charged with origin power first. It feels a bit cumbersome." Lin Shi thought this and voiced his doubt. Lin Tianrui took the origin meter from Lin Shi's hand and put it back in the box. Xia Guolong seemed to have guessed what Lin Shi was thinking and suddenly said, an ordinary person can also use it." Lin Shi had a sudden realization. That's right. This origin meter only needed to be pre-charged with origin power, and an ordinary person could use it. Although its current function was very simple and crude, what if one day, they researched a way for ordinary people to unleash the power of origin weapons? Then wouldn't ordinary people be able to kill origin beasts without unlocking their genes? Afterwards, Lin Tianrui and the other two chatted with Lin Shi about the future development direction of the shelter. Lin Shi knew that these three were talking so much with him, and even took out the precious origin meter to show him the current strength of the shelter, wanting to win him over. Just as expected, Lin Tianrui saw the time was right and asked, "Brotherly, have you given any more thought to my offer about the special officer position?" Lin Shi fell silent, thinking for a long while before answering. "We can cooperate, but I won't be joining. I'm used to my freedom." Lin Shi considered cooperating with the shelter for 3 reasons. First, he currently had a good relationship with them. If he refused, that relationship would end. Although Lin Shi had helped the shelter a few times, Lin Tianrui had paid him fairly, and he might need the shelter's power in the future. It was best not to burn any bridges unless it was a matter of life and death. Second, Lin Shi wanted to cooperate, not join. That way, regardless of any enemies or internal conflicts they had, it wouldn't affect him. Since it was just a cooperative relationship, he could terminate it unilaterally at any time. Third, Lin Shi had been in Xia City for a long time and had witnessed the actions of Lin Tianrui and the others. They genuinely wanted to lead humanity, or at least the survivors of Xia country, to a better future. This was completely different from what Lin Shi had seen in High City in his past life. That alone was enough for Lin Shi to feel that trying to cooperate with them was worth it. As for the 100 gene pills the shelter offered each month, that was just a minor detail. Also, I don't need the title of special officer. Publicly, we have no relationship whatsoever. When you need me, I'll consider whether or not to accept the job, Lin Shi added. If the work was easy and the pay was good, of course he'd do it. If it was life-threatening, he wouldn't hesitate to refuse. Lin Tianrui, He Guohuang, and Lin Honglong exchanged glances. He Guohuang nodded, and Lin Honglong gave a slight nod as well. The three had already discussed it and had anticipated that Lin Shi would have conditions. This condition was well within Lin Shi's calculations. Lin Tianrui stood up and extended a hand toward Lin Shi. Then it settled. "Brotherly, we'll be counting on your help in the future." Lin Shi also stood up and shook Lin Tianrui's hand. After finalizing the details, Lin Shi said to the three of them, "I'm going to go get the materials first. I'll be back this afternoon, and I'll bring the weapon blueprints with me then." The three of them walked Lin Shi to the door. They watched as Lin Shi and the Demon King left, and it wasn't until their figures had completely disappeared that He Guohuang said, "Excellent." After leaving the shelter, Lin Shi and the Demon King made sure no one was following them before finding a secluded spot to land. He used his spiritual power to scan the surroundings to ensure no one was there, then took out the remaining parts of the origin beasts from his storage space and began testing if they could conduct origin power. First were the 2 fangs he had taken from the saber-toothed tiger. These were the materials Lin Shi thought were most likely to work. The fangs were incredibly hard. When he removed them, he had casually swung his blade at one, and even the bone cleaver had been dented. The 2 fangs were nearly half a meter long, razor-sharp, and still stained with blood from when they were extracted. Lin Shi controlled his origin power and channeled it into a fang. As expected, the origin power flowed into it with ease. The other fang was the same. Lin Shi set the 2 fangs aside and took out the saber-toothed tiger's thigh bone to test. When he channeled origin power into the bone, he felt a resistance. A failure. Lin Shi took out the other parts of the saber-toothed tiger. He tested them one by one. None of the other bones worked. Only the tailbone was successful. It seems a single origin beast can indeed yield more than one type of material. After removing the flesh and skin, the saber-toothed tiger's tailbone looked like a long-boned sword. Picking it up and channeling origin power into it, it seemed like it could be used directly as a weapon. Placing the bone sword next to the fangs, Lin Shi began testing the parts of the level 3 origin beasts. Lin Tianrui had said that the higher the level of the origin beast, the greater the chance of finding materials. For low-level ones, it might take dozens, or even hundreds, to find one that worked. So, Lin Shi started testing from the highest level down. Otherwise, with the number of origin beast carcasses in his storage space, he had no idea when he'd be finished. A while later, Lin Shi had tested all the parts from the level 3 origin beast carcasses in his storage space. In the end, he found 5 types of materials that could conduct origin power, including the claws of a level 3 wildcat. Right now, Lin Shi had a total of 7 types of materials in front of him. 2 fangs and the tailbone from the saber-toothed tiger, a tiger fang, wolf fur, and 18 wildcat claws. But since they were small, they only counted as 1 type of material. He gathered all the materials into a pile. Lin Shi placed his hand on top and whispered, "Copy." A second later, an identical pile of materials appeared next to the original one in Lin Shi's hand. Lin Shi picked up a material and tried to channel origin power into it. Holding the successfully copied saber-toothed tiger fang, origin power surged from his body and flowed easily into it. After absorbing the origin power, the fang became unbelievably sharp. Lin Shi knew the copy was a success. Currently, the treasure basin couldn't copy origin power, but everything else was copied with great ease. This was truly good news. This had used up 1 copy charge. The treasure basin now had 1,507 copy charges remaining. This was after Lin Shi had already used a few. If he used those copy charges to replicate materials, he would have more than enough. But if he wanted to upgrade his weapons and equipment, he probably wouldn't need that many. Lin Shi kept some of the copied materials and stored the rest in his space. He took out a large hiking backpack and put all the materials and the axe-wheel blueprint inside. Seeing the time, it was already late. Lin Shi and the Demon King had a quick meal, then distributed lunch to the wailing origin beasts in his storage space. When it was time, Lin Shi leaped down from a 5th-floor window. He and the Demon King returned to the shelter. Lin Tianrui had already informed the guards. Seeing Lin Shi, the guards immediately let him pass. A soldier led the way for Lin Shi. Along the way, the soldier kept sneaking glances at Lin Shi and the Demon King, his eyes a mixture of caution and excitement. Lin Shi could feel it even without looking. When they reached Lin Tianrui's dormitory, the soldier reluctantly saluted and left. When Lin Shi entered Lin Tianrui's office, He Guohuang and Lin Honglong were gone. Only Lin Tianrui was there, hunched over his desk. Noticing Lin Shi's return, Lin Tianrui, who was busy with something, said, "Brotherly, just a moment." Lin Shi didn't mind. He sat on the sofa and waited. A few minutes later, Lin Tianrui stood up and came over to Lin Shi. The man smiled, his friendly expression not quite matching his rugged appearance. "Sorry to keep you waiting." Lin Shi said it was no problem, opened his hiking backpack, and revealed the pile of materials inside. "Are these all materials?" Lin Tianrui was astonished, unable to believe his eyes. "Can I take a look?" Lin Shi nodded and casually handed him the backpack. The backpack was filled with so many materials that it weighed dozens of pounds. But for evolved individuals like Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui, it was nothing. Lin Tianrui easily took it, laid out the 7 types of materials on the coffee table, his face filled with awe and admiration. "You really are something else, brotherly. This is more than our entire military stockpile." Without needing any equipment to measure origin chi, Lin Tianrui could tell just by channeling his own origin power that these were all materials. Lin Shi handed the axe-wheel blueprint to Lin Tianrui. "I want you to forge this type of weapon." Lin Tianrui took the drawing and looked at it, delighted. "Isn't this the weapon you used before?" "Yeah." It was love at first sight. "So badass," Lin Tianrui thought to himself. But the materials required are many times more than for a conventional sword or blade. The unit's resources were actually not abundant. But Lin Tianrui had already made a promise, so of course he couldn't go back on his word now. All right. Leave this to me. But I'll have to ask the Research Institute about the specific amount of materials needed," Lin Tianrui said, his eyes narrowed. Lin Shi nodded. "About the forging fee, we didn't specify before. For helping me forge this weapon, I'll use these wildcat claws as payment to the shelter." This was something Lin Shi had carefully considered. The axe wheel was large and voluminous, a heavy-duty cold weapon. The materials needed would certainly not be a small amount. He needed the shelter to forge not just this one weapon. In the future, he would also need a few convenient short weapons for close combat, as well as protective armor. Forging an origin weapon, besides the main material, also required various other rare metals. Not to mention the technology, including the energy source used during the forging process. It was unrealistic to expect the shelter to cover everything. Even if Lin Tianrui said nothing, it was hard to guarantee that others in the shelter wouldn't have something to say. His relationship with the shelter was one of cooperation, not dependency. Of course, he couldn't take such an advantage. Besides, knowing that the materials could be copied, he didn't mind giving up one as payment. Lin Shi pushed the wildcat claws in front of Lin Tianrui. Lin Tianrui looked at the wildcat claws Lin Shi pushed over. His expression was somewhat complicated. As the current leader of the shelter, Lin Tianrui had to put the shelter's interests first. How precious a piece of material was, Lin Tianrui naturally understood. Lin Tianrui had initially been prepared to use his own material consumption quota for the next few months to pay for Lin Shi's work. This way, it wouldn't cause dissatisfaction among others and would also ensure the fairness of the shelter's current reward and punishment system. He never expected Lin Shi to be willing to part with a piece of material as payment. Seeing Lin Tianrui's complicated mood, Lin Shi said, "I might need other origin weapons forged in the future. I'll have to trouble Leader Lin again then." Hearing this, Lin Tianrui's favorability towards Lin Shi increased even more. He knew Lin Shi didn't want to take advantage of him, nor was he the type to do so. Such a straightforward personality was something that soldiers like them greatly appreciated. "Since you've put it that way, brotherly, I'll accept. I'll have someone appraise this material and convert it into contribution points under your name. In the future, when you need materials and labor fees for forging origin weapons, it will be deducted directly from your contribution points account. What do you think?" Lin Tianrui's consideration was very thorough. Lin Shi naturally had no objections. Lin Tianrui then said, "Brotherly, if you don't mind, why don't you stay at the shelter for these few days? I'll have someone prepare a room for you. Once the origin weapon is forged, you can decide whether to stay or leave. How about it?" Lin Shi had the same intention. Although he felt that Lin Tianrui wasn't the type to embezzle his materials, he couldn't be sure about others. Even though these were copied materials, to others, they were still very precious. Lin Shi didn't want to be falsely accused of embezzling materials. Having himself there to supervise could also ensure that the person forging the origin weapon wouldn't cut corners on materials. Lin Tianrui had previously said that forging an origin weapon would take about 10 days. Lin Shi could wait that long. He nodded in agreement. "Then I'll have to trouble you, Leader Lin." Seeing Lin Shi agree, Lin Tianrui was very pleased. He immediately ordered a guard to call someone to clean a room for Lin Shi. As for the accommodation, Lin Shi wasn't too concerned. After Lin Tianrui made the arrangements, he asked, "When the origin weapon is being forged, can I go and watch in person?" Lin Tianrui replied very readily, "Of course you can. I'll take you to see our origin weapon manufacturing facility right now. We can also have someone appraise this material." Lin Tianrui was a very decisive person. He immediately led Lin Shi to the research institute. Lin Shi carefully packed the materials into his hiking backpack and followed Lin Tianrui. The research institute was also in the center of the square, only it was located underground. Lin Tianrui led Lin Shi down from the dormitory area and into another heavily guarded building. It only had a door, no windows. After being confirmed by the guards, they passed through multiple layers of doors. Opening one door revealed an elevator. Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi stepped inside. He pressed the button. "Down. Our research institute is built underground. The temperature underground is more stable, and the safety factor is also higher." Seeing that the elevator only had buttons for the first floor and the lower level, Lin Shi thought the research institute was only a few meters below the ground. He didn't expect the elevator to run for a full 10 seconds before stopping. By now, Lin Shi was 13 meters below the ground. The elevator doors opened, and what greeted him was the light of fluorescent lamps and cold walls. The underground research institute was not what Lin Shi had imagined. It wasn't a modern, high-tech architectural style. The place was very clean, but there were many doors. Lin Shi intended to use his spiritual power to scan and check the structure of the research institute, but unexpectedly, his spiritual power was met with great resistance. This had never happened before. While Lin Shi was puzzled, Lin Tianrui introduced as they walked. "Although this underground research institute was built in a hurry and doesn't look very pretty, we used all the best materials. We used some special materials to reinforce the walls. Not only are they high density, but they also have the ability to insulate against electromagnetic fields, are waterproof, anti-freeze, and fireproof. The researchers are very confident. Even if there's another solar storm, this place won't be affected. Lin Shi tried touching the wall. It felt cold and dense. His spiritual power indeed had a very hard time penetrating it. In the past 2 months, Lin Shi's spiritual power had been trained up to 804 points. Before unlocking the gene lock, the scanning range of his spiritual power had reached 80 meters. Now, being obstructed, the scanning range was only a little over 20 meters. But the size of this research institute was much larger than 20 meters. They followed Lin Tianrui to a main door. In front of them was a very thick metal door. Lin Tianrui opened it, and a wave of hot air rushed into their faces. The temperature difference of several tens of degrees caused the goggles on Lin Shi's face to instantly fog up. To facilitate research, the research lab is kept warm. Brotherly, if you feel hot, you can take off your coat and hang it here. You can put it back on when you leave. The research lab has surveillance cameras, so it won't get lost. Lin Tianrui closed the door, taking off his military coat and hanging it on a hook as he spoke. Lin Shi said it wasn't necessary. He was wearing few clothes. He just took off his goggles and put them in his hiking backpack. Without his goggles, only Lin Shi's eyes were revealed. This was the first time Lin Tianrui had seen Lin Shi's eyes clearly. They were deep blue, and the skin around them was smooth. They were clearly the eyes of a young person. They had already guessed Lin Shi's real age, but they didn't expect him to be this young. Lin Tianrui became even more curious about Lin Shi. Lin Tianrui led Lin Shi through a corridor and opened a door into a laboratory. Just as Lin Shi had imagined, when Lin Tianrui arrived, the scientists in the room only briefly looked up before lowering their heads to continue their work. A moment later, an old man walked towards them. Lin Shi used his spiritual power to recognize this person. He was the director of the research institute, Li Zhuang. As Li Zhuang approached, the first person he saw was not Lin Tianrui, but the unfamiliar Lin Shi. He immediately questioned angrily, "Leader Lin, why did you bring an outsider into the research institute?" Lin Tianrui explained, "Old Li, this is Comrade Li Erheo." Li Erheo? Li Zhuang's eyes widened. Lin Shi imagined that if he had a beard, it would definitely be standing on end. Lin Shi nodded in confirmation. Li Zhuang quickly walked up to Lin Shi, a strange glint in his eyes that Lin Shi couldn't understand. "Do you have any more mutated plants?" Lin Tianrui hurriedly stopped Li Zhuang just as he was about to touch Lin Shi's hand. "Director Li, Brother Li is here to have an origin weapon forged." "Forge an origin weapon?" Li Zhuang regained his composure. No. We have no materials to forge origin weapons. Those 2 materials have already been allocated for research." Speaking of research, Li Zhuang became agitated again. Lin Tianrui smiled wryly at Lin Shi, signaling him not to worry. He took out the wildcat claws Lin Shi had provided and handed them to Li Zhuang. "This is Brother Li's payment. Calculate how many contribution points these claws are worth. The materials for forging the origin weapon are provided by Brother Li himself. We won't be using the institutes." Seeing the wildcat claws, Li Zhuang's eyes lit up. Lin Shi finally understood what the light in Li Zhuang's eyes was. It was fanaticism. "Are you sure?" Li Zhuang held the claws like a treasure and asked Lin Tianrui. Upon receiving confirmation, this 60-year-old man grinned like a child. "Excellent. We have research materials again." After saying that, he walked away with the materials, leaving Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi standing there. Lin Tianrui smiled wryly again. He said to Lin Shi, "Brother Li, don't mind him. He's always like that. He's been doing scientific research his whole life. He's very passionate in his field, so he doesn't pay much attention to etiquette. Sometimes he can be a bit hard to talk to, but he's actually a very simple person." Lin Shi shook his head, indicating that he was fine. He now understood why scientists on TV often had eccentric personalities. Lin Tianrui said to Lin Shi, "Let's go. Director Li is probably testing the materials now. Let's go take a look." The 2 of them followed the corridor and turned into another laboratory. As soon as they entered, they heard exclamations from inside the room. "It's a level 3 material." In the laboratory, all the researchers exclaimed in surprise when they saw the results on the testing equipment. Origin power absorption, 2,110 points. Higher than any material we've used before. A thin, pale researcher's eyes shone brightly as he looked at the data displayed on the device. "Director, is this the latest material found in the army? With this material, our experiment's progress will be significantly accelerated. Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui entered the laboratory and witnessed the scene of scientists in protective uniforms surrounding a machine, arguing animatedly. When Li Zhuang saw the two enter the room, he managed to suppress his excitement and remembered the purpose of this material. He explained to the other researchers, "This material was brought by this young man." Li Zhuang pointed at Lin Shi. Instantly, a series of burning gazes fell upon Lin Shi. Lin Shi felt his heart thump. Lin Shi used his spiritual ability to scan the laboratory and confirm that all the researchers were ordinary people. But these gazes were too intense. That intense stare made Lin Shi feel more stressed than when he faced the level 4 saber-toothed tiger. Lin Tianrui urged, "Director, please appraise the contribution points for this material first, then put it in storage." Such a precious material, newly discovered, and with no precedent for private submission, the shelter did not have a complete standard for converting it to contribution points. Li Zhuang glanced at Lin Shi, remembering the last time Lin Shi had taken all the gene medicine from his warehouse. A childish sense of resentment made Li Zhuang secretly decide to rip this kid off. This material was indeed good. As for the price, Li Zhuang was about to lowball it, but when they heard it only needed to be exchanged for contribution points, the other researchers all got excited. Before Li Zhuang could speak, a researcher who looked like a bookworm, wearing thick glasses, looked at the data on the device and said frankly, "A level 3 material. It should be at least 2 million contribution points, right?" This number startled Li Zhuang. 2 million? Are you kidding me? Another older researcher looked at the person who had just said 2 million with dissatisfaction. This older researcher was a student whom Li Zhuang had personally mentored for decades. Li Zhuang thought to himself, "As expected, my student is still smarter than others. He knows how to bargain." Under Li Zhuang's approving gaze, that person said, "I think 3 million is more reasonable. Everyone, think about it. This is a level 3 material, not level 1 or level 2. Such a precious item, adding more contribution points is only natural, isn't it?" Li Zhuang. The other researchers also vied to bid. The situation was no different from an auction for a rare treasure. The price kept rising. A researcher had already proposed 3.5 million. Li Zhuang couldn't get a word in at all. The situation was gradually getting out of control. Ahem. Lin Tianrui cleared his throat and quickly said, "How about 4 million, brotherly? What do you think of this price?" Lin Tianrui was afraid these old men would shout it up to 10 million. He didn't know the market price, which was a real pain. If Lin Tianrui could see Lin Shi smiling under his mask at this moment, he would know that he was very satisfied with this price. "I think that's fine. Let's go with Leader Lin's price." Just one copy was worth 4 million gene pills, even more valuable than the mutated potatoes. This was also beyond Lin Shi's expectations. After all, the mutated potatoes were a one-time sale. Now, the vegetable garden in the shelter had planted a whole bunch of them. But for the shelter, materials were a rare and non-renewable resource. As long as he wanted to sell, there would definitely be buyers. Lin Tianrui signaled for Lin Shi to take out the blueprint and give it to Li Zhuang. "Director Li, take a look. How many materials and other supplies are needed to forge this origin weapon?" Li Zhuang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He was clearly angry, not at Lin Shi, but at himself for having such unrealistic expectations for his moldy students. These pig-headed fools. They've been researching so much their brains have turned to mush. He snatched the blueprint from Lin Shi's hand and glanced at it. When it came to his area of expertise, Li Zhuang immediately shed his unpleasant expression. His face became serious. A weapon this huge, made entirely of origin material. It's going to require a lot of materials. Lin Shi stated his requirements clearly. "My request is that after it's forged, origin power can be infused into the entire weapon, maximizing its offensive power. As for the materials, as long as it can be done, it's fine. You don't need to worry about it." Li Zhuang looked up from the blueprint, his eyes filled with suspicion as he looked at Lin Shi. "An origin weapon this big will require at least 3 sets of materials alone. Do you have that many materials? Let me tell you first, you can't take back the item you gave before, or else I won't forge this origin weapon for you." A quick-witted research staff member immediately packed up the previous item and put it away, so that Lin Shi couldn't take it back. This display of feigned innocence gave Lin Tianrui a bit of a headache. He rubbed his temples. Every time he came to the research institute, Lin Tianrui felt like he was entering a children's zoo. These scientists were mostly immersed in their research. Otherwise, they wouldn't have become the top figures in Xia country. It was just that their personalities were sometimes really hard to bear. He could only shake his head and smile wryly. Lin Tianrui looked at Lin Shi apologetically. Lin Shi noticed Lin Tianrui's gaze. He smiled, put down his hiking backpack, and revealed the pile of materials inside. You guys take a look and see what you need. I often go hunting for origin beasts. When Lin Shi revealed the pile of materials, all the scientists' eyes lit up. Li Zhuang once again displayed a speed that didn't match his age, rushing in front of Lin Shi. He opened the hiking backpack and took out the materials one by one. Are these all materials? Li Zhuang couldn't believe it. My God, I've never seen so many materials in my life. What kind of teeth are these? They're huge. Xiaohe, come take a look. Do we need to get the level 3 wolf hide from the warehouse for this? While everyone was amazed at the huge amount of materials in Lin Shi's hiking backpack, someone caught the term Lin Shi had just used. Origin beast? Did you just say origin beast? The shelter officially still called them anomalous beasts. Lin Shi was startled, realizing he had just misspoken. He blinked twice. What's wrong? They are all wild beasts that evolved from having a lot of origin power. Isn't calling them origin beasts more accurate? I've always called them origin beasts. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, a research staff member spoke up in agreement. You think so too? We've wanted to change the name from anomalous beast to origin beast for a long time. Even Li Zhuang looked at Lin Shi in surprise. The name, anomalous beast, was passed down from the survivors. Origin beasts appeared by absorbing origin power. As serious scientific researchers, they had long wanted to change the name from anomalous beast to origin beast. It was just that the name anomalous beast was now widely popular. Not just in Xia City, but other survivor cities also called them that. The research institute had wanted to correct it, but Lin Tianrui and everyone else thought it was just a name and not worth bothering with, so the name change was delayed. Lin Shi's term, origin beast, had shortened the distance between him and the research staff quite a bit. Understanding everything, Lin Shi chuckled and breathed a sigh of relief. Actually, calling them origin beasts is much more accurate. Leader Lin, did you hear that? I hope you will popularize this name soon, a research staff member said with some dissatisfaction. This tone made it sound as if this research staff member was Lin Tianrui's superior. Lin Tianrui said nothing, just smiled wryly and nodded. I know. After that, everyone took the materials Lin Shi brought and placed them on the testing machine. The first few items were fine. Although they were all materials from level 3 origin beasts, after a moment of surprise, everyone was left with only shock and admiration for the 4 consecutive level 3 materials. That was until Li Zhuang placed the tiger tail, obtained from the level 4 saber-toothed tiger, into the testing machine. The number on the screen jumped, then stopped. The data displayed on the screen seemed to press the pause button for the entire laboratory. All the scientific research staff in the laboratory fell silent. 5,150. Exceeding 3,000 points meant that the owner of this material was a level 4 origin beast. Xia City had only encountered a level 4 origin beast once, which was the Beast King that appeared during the terrifying beast tide before. The saber-toothed tiger had traces of atavism, making it extremely valuable for research. Just 3 seconds later, the breathing of all the scientific research staff in the laboratory became rapid. Level 4. Is there something wrong with my eyes? Is it the Beast King? The Beast King. I dream of studying the Beast King. Am I not awake yet? Someone pinch me. The elderly Li Zhuang, disregarding his image, rushed in front of Lin Shi, took Lin Shi's hand, and shook it vigorously. Was it the Beast King? Is this material from the Beast King? Except for Lin Tianrui, everyone else seemed to want to burn Lin Shi with their fiery gazes. Lin Tianrui also looked at Lin Shi in surprise. Last time Wang Chao came back to report, Lin Tianrui had guessed that Lin Shi wouldn't let the saber-toothed tiger go. Because after that, when they cleaned up the remaining origin beasts, they didn't see any sign of the saber-toothed tiger. But a guess was still just a guess. It was also possible that the saber-toothed tiger had run deep into the mountains. Now, seeing the level 4 material, Lin Tianrui was sure that Lin Shi had killed the saber-toothed tiger. How could there not be a level 4 material? Facing those fiery gazes, Lin Shi's expression didn't change. He just pulled his hand out of Li Zhuangke's and said, "Which beast king are you talking about? I've killed more than 1 or 2 level 4 origin beasts." Lin Shi naturally knew that using the material from the saber-toothed tiger to forge an origin weapon would reveal that he had killed the saber-toothed tiger. Killing the saber-toothed tiger did no harm to the government. In fact, the government would want to thank him for eliminating that trouble. The only ones he had harmed were Qi Yun and those people. Therefore, he had to be on guard against Qi Yun looking for trouble with him. So, he had also come prepared. Before coming, Lin Shi had prepared another set of materials from the saber-toothed tiger. Even a pair of fangs were made to be identical to the other pair in shape and weight. This time, to forge the origin weapon, Lin Shi had put in all his capital. "What? You have more?" Li Zhuang didn't have Lin Shi's cunning mind. Hearing this, he immediately believed it. Fortunately, Lin Shi was famous throughout the shelter thanks to Li Erheo's reputation. Li Zhuang had no doubts. He looked at Lin Shi with an eager expression. "Can you let me see it? I didn't bring it with me when I went out today. I'll definitely let the director see it when I have the chance," Lin Shi said without batting an eye. "Good, good." Li Zhuang said good 3 times in a row, as excited as a 6 or 7-year-old child. "Young Li, don't worry. I will personally supervise the forging of this origin weapon. I guarantee it will be perfect." Because of his joy, Li Zhuang had forgotten the little bit of resentment he had towards Lin Shi before. Lin Shi was also overjoyed. With the director personally taking charge, what more could he ask for? He didn't mind helping out either. "Then I'll have to trouble the director." Haha, no trouble at all. Both of them were very happy. Li Zhuang immediately summoned the scientists in charge of forging origin weapons to study the optimal plan together. After nearly 3 hours, they decided that the materials needed for forging the large axe version of the origin weapon included the fangs and tail of the sword-toothed tiger, along with a tooth from a level 3 giant lion. For the other auxiliary materials, Lin Shi requested the best quality and also listed some rare metals and other auxiliary materials. In total, it was estimated to cost over 2 million contribution points. Although expensive, resources in the apocalypse were already precious. Moreover, Lin Shi had chosen rare and expensive metals even before the apocalypse. The initial estimate was that the forging process would take more than a week. The power consumption would be a huge number. The energy costs and other fees in the later stages were also not small. Apart from Lin Shi, no one in the shelter could currently afford this fee. Not even Lin Tianrui. Lin Tianrui was the leader of the shelter, but that didn't mean he could use the resources in the shelter at will. The mobilization of a large number of resources had to go through the negotiation and voting of the entire leadership, and it had to be confirmed that it had corresponding use value. The others were even less likely to be able to afford it. Over 2 million contribution points, just hunting origin beasts alone, who knows how long it would take to accumulate. After agreeing on the plan and forging time with Li Zhuang, Lin Shi left the research institute with Lin Tianrui. When the two returned to the surface, it was already dark. Lin Tianrui immediately said, "Brotherly, it's already late. Come have dinner with me. Consider it me being the host." Lin Shi was about to refuse, but then he remembered that he hadn't brought any food with him. If people saw that he didn't eat or drink anything, it would be easy to arouse suspicion. Thinking about the amount of food he and his battle beast ate, Lin Shi said, "My battle beast and I eat quite a lot." Hearing this, Lin Tianrui laughed heartily. Nowadays, there were people in the army who tamed origin beasts. Lin Tianrui naturally knew that origin beasts consumed a large amount of meat at every meal. Lin Tianrui thought Lin Shi was afraid the Demon King would eat too much, so he said generously, "It's no problem. Can't I even afford to treat you to a meal? Eat as much as you want. But our army doesn't have a place for a small stove. If you want to eat hot food, you have to go to the cafeteria. I usually eat at the cafeteria too. Brotherly, if you mind, just say so. I'll have someone bring it to you." In the army, there was no special treatment. Lin Tianrui had to lead by example to avoid breaking the rules of this shelter. With Lin Tianrui leading the way, even the high-ranking officials from Shangjing didn't dare to do anything special. Lin Shi's impression of Lin Tianrui improved even more. Having experienced the apocalypse, why would he care about eating in a group? He replied, "No need for the trouble. I don't mind going to the cafeteria." Lin Tianrui smiled and nodded, leading Lin Shi and the Demon King towards the cafeteria. At this time, the cafeteria was crowded with soldiers and evolved individuals eating. When the soldiers saw Lin Tianrui, they only greeted him from a distance. But when they saw Lin Shi and the Demon King, they became a little restless. Before leaving, Lin Shi had put his goggles back on. The appearance of the Demon King was too eye-catching. These soldiers recognized Lin Shi's identity at a glance. Even with Lin Tianrui here, the soldiers didn't dare to surround them, but they kept turning their heads to look at the Demon King and Lin Shi. Even Lin Tianrui became a backdrop for Lin Shi and the Demon King. Lin Tianrui helplessly shook his head and said with a smile, "Brotherly, you have no idea. The young lads in our army now all see you as a hero. They're spreading it everywhere. They dream of taming a battle beast exactly like your Demon King. Look at them, every single one. If I weren't here, they would definitely surround you. Is it that much of an exaggeration?" Lin Shi looked around and indeed saw that the soldiers who kept turning their heads all had looks of adoration. "It's fine, haha." Brotherly still underestimates his own appeal. Although Lin Tianrui was smiling, there was a different meaning in his eyes. Lin Shi said, "In any era, the strong and those who carry the banner of righteousness will become the heroes of that era. Even if they can't be kings or emperors, their names will be recorded in history, especially in chaotic times. Isn't Brotherly such a heroic figure?" Lin Shi's eyes suddenly flashed. Lin Tianrui didn't continue, but changed the subject. "We're here." The shelter's cafeteria was very large. It was filled with soldiers and evolved individuals coming and going. The Demon King's huge body naturally couldn't enter the cafeteria, but Lin Tianrui had obviously come prepared. To the right of the cafeteria entrance, on an empty space, a few soldiers were guarding the carcass of a level 1 origin beast. This was what Lin Tianrui had someone bring for the Demon King to eat. A level 1 origin beast carcass was also very precious to the army. It was clear that Lin Tianrui had put in a lot of effort. When Lin Tianrui arrived, the few soldiers retreated. Lin Tianrui walked up to the Demon King and said, "Demon King, eat as much as you want. Eat until you're full." Humph. The Demon King turned its head and glanced at the frozen, stiff carcass of the level 1 wild boar on the ground, covered in snow. A look of disdain appeared in its eyes. With Lin Shi, the Demon King basically only ate the meat of freshly killed origin beasts, still warm. And grilled meat too. Since the great beast died, the Demon King had only eaten beasts of level 3 or higher. However, the Demon King was very smart. It knew this wasn't the place to be picky about food. It leisurely walked over, tore off a boar leg, and started gnawing. After greeting the Demon King, Lin Shi followed Lin Tianrui into the dining hall. Leaving the Demon King outside the dining hall, Lin Shi was very at ease. This place was absolutely safe. No one could harm the Demon King, even if they tried. With such a close distance, Lin Shi could still rush out from the dining hall immediately. But Lin Shi didn't expect that trouble would come faster than he thought. While Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui were eating, a group of uninvited guests appeared at the gate of the shelter. The sun was setting, and the gate guard was preparing to close the gate. As usual, he looked around once, confirmed that no one else was entering or leaving, and then went to the gate switch. Just a second after he closed the gate, a group of ghost-like black shadows, carried by a strong wind, rushed over. Before the gate could close completely, 5 people had slipped in. "Who's there?" the soldiers exclaimed in surprise. The gate slammed shut with a bang. One of the 5 people stepped out, his face tired and much gaunter than before. It was none other than Chi-san, who hadn't appeared here for a long time. Chi-san spoke to the soldiers in an unfriendly tone. "These are 4 elders of our clan. Hurry up and invite your leader out to greet them." The soldiers recognized Chi-san and knew that these people were difficult to deal with. The squad leader immediately said, "I'll go report to the leader." With that, he ran off to inform Lin Tianrui. The 5 people waited for a while, but still didn't see the soldier return. Chi-san was exhausted from the journey. He just wanted to rest. Seeing that the soldier was taking too long, Chi-san became impatient, but still forced a smile for the 4 elders. Elders, how about we go to the young master's place first? Lin Tianrui is probably having dinner at this time. The 4 elders of the Qi clan were all wearing yellow robes of superior material. They were of different heights and builds, all middle-aged. Among them, a thin, short man with a goatee, named Qi Bing. Qi Bing stroked his sparse beard and said slowly, "Since we're here, we must naturally greet the leader of this place first. We can't let people say our clan lacks courtesy." Qi Sing gave a bitter smile. "Yes, then let's wait a moment. I'll have someone inform the young master." About 10 minutes later, the soldier returned, but without Lin Tianrui. "Honored guests from afar, it's already dark. The leader has instructed me to arrange a place for you to rest first. The leader is busy. After you've settled in, we will bring dinner and supplies." The 4 elders of the Qi clan all showed their displeasure. Qi Bing's face was unhappy. "What's so important that your leader is busy with? Did you tell him who we are?" The squad leader maintained a professional attitude. "I did, but the leader is very busy. He said that since you've come from afar, you should rest first." "Humph, a mere leader of Xia City putting on airs." A middle-aged, rather fat elder shouted. Just then, Qi Yun received the news and rushed over with Qi Yi and Qi Qi. "Elders." Lin Shi was in the cafeteria, eating comfortably. Since unlocking the level 4 gene lock, the amount of food he ate far exceeded that of ordinary people. At this point, Lin Shi had already eaten an amount of food equivalent to 10 people. At this point, how could he not eat his fill? In the middle of it, Lin Shi saw a soldier come to report something to Lin Tianrui. The two of them went to one side to talk. Lin Shi didn't use his spiritual power to eavesdrop and continued to focus on eating. It wasn't long before Lin Tianrui returned. Seeing that his expression was normal, Lin Shi didn't pay much attention. But right after that, another soldier came looking for Lin Tianrui. This time, the soldier didn't avoid Lin Shi and said frankly, "Leader, the wild boar outside. That wild boar has been eaten." Lin Tianrui nodded. "It's fine if it's eaten. I already said, if it can eat the whole thing, then let it eat." The soldier hesitated, glanced at Lin Shi who was eating his 13th box of food, and then said, "But that giant wolf, it seems like it's still not full." Lin Tianrui glanced at Lin Shi. This person still hadn't looked up. Only then did he remember what Lin Shi had said about the amount of food the two of them ate. It was indeed terrifying. Lin Tianrui immediately ordered the soldier, "Have someone go to the warehouse and bring another one." The extreme apocalypse also had its advantages. That is, meat would not spoil. As long as it was a dead origin beast, they were all piled up. Just find a spacious place to put the origin beast carcasses. The harsh environment was a natural refrigerator. The soldier took the order and left. Just as Lin Shi finished his 15th box of food, his ears suddenly twitched. It seemed he heard the Demon King's voice outside the cafeteria. Lin Shi habitually deployed his spiritual power to observe. Immediately, he saw Qi Yun and a few people standing next to the Demon King. At this moment, the Demon King had put down the food that had just been brought over, its eyes fiercely staring at Qi Yun's group, letting out a threatening growl. And the people Lin Shi had met before, like Qi Yi, Qi San, and Qi Qi, besides Qi Yun, there were 4 more middle-aged elders. These people had originally intended to find Lin Tianrui, but they unexpectedly saw the Demon King at the entrance of the cafeteria and stopped. Qi Yun was about to introduce the origin of the Demon King. It was unknown whether it was because Lin Shi had unlocked the level 4 gene lock and his spiritual power was superior to Qi Yun's, but this time Qi Yun did not detect that he was being spied on by Lin Shi. On the contrary, Qi Bing seemed to sense something, and suddenly raised his head. Humph. Immediately, a sharp spiritual attack was directed towards Lin Shi's spiritual power. Lin Shi had tasted the bitterness of being attacked by spiritual power before. When he sensed the level 4 origin power fluctuations on this person, he immediately withdrew his spiritual power. It wasn't that his spiritual power was weaker than the other person's, but that he didn't want to alert the enemy. Before, Lin Shi had experimented with his little calico cat. As long as he contained his origin power within his body and covered it with spiritual power, he would not be detected by people with spiritual power lower than or equal to his own. Indeed, beside Qi Yun, a level 4 gene unlocked elder and 3 level 3 gene unlocked elders suddenly appeared. Such high-level evolved experts were definitely from the hidden clans. It was likely they came because of the portrait incident last time. Lin Shi naturally had to be careful and hide his strength. Lin Shi's spiritual power was withdrawn very quickly, causing Qi Bing's attack to hit empty air. Qi Yun looked at Qi Bing in confusion. Seeing his expression change suddenly, he asked, "Elder, what's wrong?" "Someone was just probing us with spiritual power," Qi Bing said with a serious expression. The other three elders, including Qi Yun, all changed their expressions. Someone had just covered them with spiritual power, and they hadn't even noticed. This clearly showed that the person just now had stronger spiritual power than them. Qi Bing scanned the area with his spiritual power, pausing for a second on Lin Tianrui, and then pausing for a moment on Qin Shuang, who was preparing to approach. He said, "That spiritual power is not strong. It's just a fledgling who has just broken through the third gene lock and hasn't had spiritual perception for long. It's likely that it has a very strong spiritual concealment technique. It's very likely a third-stage spiritual talent." Because Lin Shi used a spiritual scan before unlocking his genes, the spiritual fluctuations were not strong. Qi Bing also didn't think that besides the hidden clans, there were wild people who could break through to the fourth stage. Therefore, he thought that the person who had just scanned with spiritual power was Qin Shuang. Hearing this, the old woman beside Qi Yun breathed a sigh of relief. A spiritual talent was, after all, easier to deal with than a fourth-stage evolved person. Qi Yun, Qi Bing, and the others spoke in very low voices. A soldier who was guarding the Demon King as it ate was disturbed by them. Not knowing what they were saying, he spoke up. "Young Master Qi, this is our leader's honored guest's battle beast. It doesn't belong to the army. Please leave. If it gets angry, we can't guarantee the consequences." Because Qi Yun and the others had come, the Demon King stopped eating and stood up, warily looking at them. "Heh, a mere animal. If it dares to act rashly, I'll kill it with one punch," a slightly fat elder said. Qi Yun hadn't had time to tell Qi Bing, Qi San, and the other elders about Lin Shi and the Demon King. They still didn't know that the Demon King before them was a fourth-stage origin beast. Qi Yun hadn't said anything yet, but Qi Bing had already spoken up. "Don't kill it. I think this animal is quite spiritual. I'll take it as a mount. Next time I travel, I won't have to walk." This tone clearly meant he wanted to take the Demon King for himself. The soldier was angry and emphasized, "Sirs, this is our leader's honored guest's battle beast. It already has a master." 3 of the 4 elders laughed heartily, looking at each other with understanding. One of them said, "It has a master? Then just kill its master and it will be masterless." These words were extremely arrogant, showing that they completely disregarded Lin Tianrui and his shelter. The Demon King understood their words and couldn't bear it anymore. Its unusual eyes flashed with a sharp light as it lunged towards the Qi clan elder who had just spoken. An origin beast is much faster than an evolved person of the same level, let alone a third-stage evolved person who hasn't unlocked their genes. No one expected the Demon King to suddenly attack. Everyone only saw a strong wind blow past, and the Qi clan elder was knocked to the ground by the Demon King. The Demon King's sharp claws pierced the elder's chest, blood splattering everywhere. Qi Bing reacted the fastest. He clenched his fist and punched hard at the Demon King's head, but only hit the air. The Demon King had nimbly dodged. Everything happened too quickly, in just a flash. Only then did Qi Yun's reminder ring out. "Be careful, that's a fourth-stage origin beast." At the same time, Lin Tianrui's voice came from the dining hall entrance. "What's going on?" Lin Shi and Lin Tianrui heard the commotion and came out of the cafeteria. Hearing Lin Tianrui's question, a soldier immediately stepped forward to report what had just happened. While the soldier was still reporting, Qi Bing shouted, "Damn beast, you're courting death." With a swish, Qi Bing drew a gleaming sword from his back and lunged towards the Demon King with the force of a soaring dragon and dancing phoenix. "Stop!" Seeing this, Lin Tianrui shouted to stop him. But Qi Bing seemed not to hear and still rushed straight towards the Demon King. Qi Yun and 2 others immediately took out a blue pill and fed it to the elder who had just been seriously injured. Lin Tianrui frowned deeply and looked at Qi Yun, saying, "Young Master Qi, tell your people to stop." Qi Yun heard this, stood up straight, glanced at Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi who was standing next to Lin Tianrui, and then gave a mocking smile. I can't order the elders of our clan. Even my father has to give them some face. Now that the elder is angry, it's better for leader Lin not to meddle. The meaning was that the Demon King was not a real origin beast, so Lin Tianrui didn't need to interfere in the confrontation between them and the Qi family. At the same time, facing Qi Bing's sharp sword Qi, the Demon King raised its front paw, seemingly intending to block the sword with its claws. A hint of disdain flashed across Qi Bing's face. An animal is still an animal, he thought, daring to block the Qi family's weapon with its claws. The origin power in Qi Bing's body erupted, and the cold light on his sword became even sharper. It was clear he had infused origin power into the sword. If the sword and claw collided, no one thought the Demon King's claw could withstand this blow. All the surrounding soldiers, including Lin Tianrui, were worried for the Demon King. Only Lin Shi remained calm, standing still. He knew the Demon King's strength better than anyone. It was a level 4 origin beast. If the saber-toothed tiger's combat power was 100 before, then the Demon King, after being carefully trained by Lin Shi, would be at 200. The Demon King was not only rich in combat experience, but had also been with Lin Shi for a long time. In battle, it didn't just use brute force, but also knew how to use a little cunning to trick its opponent. It could be said that if Lin Shi didn't know the Demon King well, in a first encounter, even Lin Shi could suffer a loss. Sure enough, just as Qi Bing thought he was about to cut off the Demon King's paw, his vision suddenly blurred. The Demon King had disappeared. Be careful. Qi Bing only heard the reminder and immediately felt a strong force coming from behind him. He was kicked by the Demon King's hind leg and sent flying. Fortunately, Qi Bing was agile and reacted quickly, so he didn't fall flat on his face. Qi Bing didn't expect an origin beast to be so cunning, even knowing how to use a feint to deceive. In front of so many people, this blow, although it didn't injure him, made Qi Bing feel very embarrassed. His face flushed red. Who was he? He was someone who had been by the Qi family head's side for decades, had made many great contributions, and was an elder of the Qi family. In the Qi family, even the direct descendants had to call him elder. Yet he was beaten up by an animal he considered insignificant. Qi Bing was extremely furious in his heart. Seeing that Qi Bing was about to attack again, Lin Tianrui and Lin Shi quickly came to the Demon King's side. Lin Tianrui stood in front of the Demon King, while Lin Shi patted the Demon King's neck. Get out of the way. In his rage, Qi Bing saw someone blocking his way to the Demon King, and the killing intent around him flared up. He raised his sword, intending to kill the person in front of him. But just a second later, the sound of guns being cocked rang out in unison. Everyone in the dining hall, except for Qi Yun's group, pointed their guns at Qi Bing. Many other evolved individuals also drew their weapons, secretly supporting Lin Tianrui, ready to unlock their genes and attack if he gave the order. Being aimed at by hundreds of guns, the sense of danger like 1,000 needles pricking him made Qi Bing instantly calm down. A fourth-stage evolved person could defend against ordinary bullets, but against armor-piercing bullets, especially in such large numbers, even a fourth-stage origin beast would be slightly injured. Moreover, a person's defense was even weaker. Seeing the situation around him, Qi Bing suddenly realized who the other person was and asked, "You are the leader of this place?" Lin Tianrui's expression was solemn, his tall figure like an unshakable mountain. "I am the leader of this shelter, Lin Tianrui. You should know who I am. That beast injured our people." Qi Bing lowered his sword, his body straight, his killing intent not yet retracted, still in a defensive posture, obviously not giving up. In response to Qi Bing's direct killing intent, Lin Tianrui calmly replied, "My soldiers have told me everything that happened." "Then get out of the way. Hand over that beast to me," Qi Bing ordered coldly. "My soldiers said that you started the trouble first, disturbing the Demon King while it was eating, and even wanted to capture it and kill its master, which is why it attacked." Lin Tianrui explained slowly. Qi Bing sneered contemptuously. "So what? We haven't done anything yet. The fact is that beast injured our people. Hand over the beast behind you to us, and we'll consider this matter over. If not, you will be declaring war on our Qi family." Qi Bing's words were not only domineering, but also brutal. And this threat was not an empty one. The Qi family had that kind of strength. In the past, when the Qi family said these words, any opponent who was not a hidden clan and knew the strength of the Qi family would endure it for the sake of peace. At this moment, Lin Tianrui's face completely turned cold. The fist behind his back was clenched tightly. Green veins popped up. Lin Shi, standing behind him, could feel the anger of this resolute man. Lin Shi didn't speak because Lin Tianrui was the leader of the shelter. Now that he had stepped forward, Lin Shi couldn't overstep his authority. It was childish. Unless Lin Tianrui couldn't handle it, or someone dragged the war to his side. Lin Tianrui tried to suppress his anger. He looked towards Qi Yun. Is your Qi family planning to use this reason to confront us, young Master Qi? Qi Yun knew that the Demon King was Lin Shi's battle pet. He had been watching the show for so long. Qi Yun still hadn't reminded Qi Bing. It was unclear whether he was testing Lin Tianrui or wanted to see Qi Bing make a fool of himself. Being called out by Lin Tianrui, Qi Yun casually shrugged his shoulders. It seemed that he felt the fire was big enough. He pointed his finger at Lin Shi, who was also watching the show. Elder, you've got the wrong person. That origin beast is this kid's battle pet. Being pointed at by Qi Yun, Qi Bing finally noticed Lin Shi. At this moment, Lin Shi was still leisurely grooming the Demon King's messy fur. Seeing everyone looking at him, Lin Shi stopped. He faced the surprised Qi Bing. This is my battle pet. Old man, are you blind? This is my battle pet. Old man, are you blind? Lin Shi's words were like a detonator in the fuse of Qi Bing's anger, which was already about to be extinguished. The soldiers and evolved individuals who heard this sentence, those who were not serious, burst out laughing. The incident caused a big commotion. The soldiers had already reported to He Guohuang and the others. At this moment, He Guohuang and his people were standing outside observing the situation. Seeing that Lin Shi had finally appeared, the old men next to He Guohuang breathed a sigh of relief. What is that kid Tianrui doing? Why is he offending the hidden clans for an outsider? The few people the hidden clans sent this time seemed to be old hands in high positions. The one with the sword is skilled in martial arts. If Tianrui steps forward, it might bring great disaster to our shelter. As a leader, he has no sense of reason at all. Does he want to drag the whole shelter down with him? The people who said this were the ones who had followed He Guohuang on the icebreaker into Xia City from Shangjing, including various noble families and officials. They had always been secretly critical of He Guohuang's support for Lin Tianrui as the leader of the shelter. Seeing Lin Tianrui disregard the danger and block Qi Bing for Lin Shi, they took the opportunity to speak ill of him in front of He Guohuang. Hearing this, Lin Honglong frowned, his eyes sweeping over the few people. Cowards! We are always surrounded by the hunting dogs of the hidden clans. If you are afraid of death, then go lick the boots of those people. Maybe you can even change your name and surname for the rest of your lives. Lin Honglong spoke bluntly, without giving any face to those few people, making them turn pale with anger. They were indeed afraid of death, and also afraid of the hidden clans. They were even more afraid that Lin Tianrui offending the hidden clans would implicate them. Someone retorted, "It's not like that. The hidden clans are so powerful. If we had the strength to fight them, who would be willing to suffer humiliation? Commander Lin, we know you are upright and righteous, but please consider, do we have the strength to confront the hidden clans now? That's right. A person who accomplishes great things doesn't sweat the small stuff. In the past, there was Gojian who endured hardship and tasted gall, and Han Xian who endured the humiliation of crawling between someone's legs. Before we have enough strength, we should build a good relationship with the hidden clans. Now, to ruin the relationship with the Qi family for an outsider is indeed unwise." Lin Honglong sneered. "According to you, Lier Heo is also very strong. Why don't you go flatter him?" This time, those old men laughed mockingly. "Lier Heo? How can he alone fight against all the hidden clans?" But before the words were finished, this person suddenly exclaimed, "What?" At that moment, Qi Bing heard what Lin Shi said, and was so angry that his beard stood on end. "Kid, what did you say?" Although no one could see Lin Shi's expression, everyone could hear his voice. Lin Shi said in a pitiful tone, "Did you hear what I said? I didn't expect that you're not only blind, but also deaf. Fine. Seeing as you're old, blind, and deaf, I'll make an offer. If you cut off one of your own legs, I won't pursue the matter of you guys disturbing my battle pet's dinner. How about it? You're courting death." Qi Bing roared. No one had ever dared to speak to him like that. In his rage, Qi Bing didn't even bother with Lin Tianrui. He pushed off with his feet and leaped up, lunging towards Lin Shi, thrusting his sword. Qi Bing saw that Lin Shi was only a second-stage evolved person, with only a little origin power fluctuation on his body. He thought that as long as he was careful of that fourth-stage origin beast, killing Lin Shi would be a piece of cake. Lin Shi was waiting for Qi Bing to attack first. Hitting someone over something so trivial? I guess I can't be blamed for defending myself, right? Lin Shi said as he drew the military knife from his waist and blocked Qi Bing's sword. With a loud clang of metal on metal, the military knife Lin Shi had used for several months shattered into pieces. A normal weapon was indeed no match for an origin weapon. Trying to block my treasured sword with a piece of scrap metal? Kid, you can regret it in hell. The killing intent in Qi Bing's eyes grew stronger. He dodged the Demon King's attack, his wrist flicked, and the sword's light stabbed towards Lin Shi's neck. He wanted to kill Lin Shi immediately. As soon as the sword broke, Lin Shi seemed to have anticipated it. He reacted extremely quickly and dodged Qi Bing's sword light. He threw a punch towards Qi Bing's sword-wielding arm. Although this punch was not aimed at a vital point, Qi Bing still felt a sense of danger. He didn't have time to unlock his genes and missed the opportunity to dodge. A fast and powerful punch, carrying a strong gust of wind, slammed straight into Qi Bing's arm as he was retracting his move. By the time Qi Bing realized something was wrong, it was too late. Crack. The moment Lin Shi's fist touched Qi Bing's arm, Qi Bing's forearm made a sound from being overloaded. Those nearby all heard the crisp sound of bone breaking. Qi Bing's arm was instantly deformed. This was a move Lin Shi had learned while fighting the Demon King, aimed at overcoming his weaknesses in combat against evolved individuals.